Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. It is 1 o'clock. This is the regular meeting of the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners for May 24th, 2022. Before we begin, a technical announcement. We're still having, I believe, some streaming issues, so I don't know. If you're one of our many millions of television viewers, you might be able to see us on TV. I don't know how it's working on the computer, but they're working on it. They'll try to get it fixed. Okay, so again, welcome everyone. We're glad you're here. We usually begin our meetings with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Today, when we begin, I'm going to ask Commissioner Kennard to lead us in the invocation. And then when we get to the Pledge of Allegiance, we have the honor of having Colonel Elizabeth Medina. Did I pronounce that right? I hope. Yes, thank you. Retired with 33 years of service to the U.S. Army. Enlisted at 17 years old, went through ROTC to commission, served in multiple specialties, military intelligence, civil affairs, special operations, and as a strategist and commander, deployed to 12 countries and 3 in wartime, Kuwait, Iraq, and Qatar. Thank you very much. So.
Go female veterans.
Yes, so, and it's particularly this time of year, and we do appreciate all those in service. It lets us have the opportunity to come and practice our rights that the veterans have earned for us to yell at our elected officials. That's what we're here for today. So,
Very good.
So, yes, so with that said, Commissioner Kennard, would you lead us in the invocation?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you in prayer again today. So thankful, Lord, for the many blessings in our lives. We thank you for having the opportunity to be here today and go about taking care of the county business today in a public forum. We thank you for the tremendous public support and outpouring and input that we received at this morning's meeting and those who are here this afternoon to join us. We pray that you'd give us wisdom and discernment, Lord. And again, I pray for open ears, minds, and hearts to not only to listen to each other, Lord, but to hear each other and the public as they contribute to the work of county government. Lord, we thank you for the men and women in uniform overseas. We thank you for, Lord, just the effort that they put forth on our behalf and their families. Lord, we thank you for our first responders here at home. We pray that you protect each and every one of them and bring them home safely to their families. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Colonel, you ready?
Actually, all my sisters in arms.
They moved it.
They did, didn't they? Wow.
They moved the flag. We need to move it back.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And I do believe the flag's supposed to be on that side.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
If memory serves, Colonel Medina was also we were very fortunate as a county to have her as one of the 40 in the strategic planning sessions representing veterans. So thank you, Colonel, for your service in that area too.
Thank you. Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
This is a regular meeting of the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners, this 24th day of May, 2022. In attendance, Chairman Ronald Kitchen, First Vice Chair Ruthie Schleybaugh, Second Vice Chair Holly Davis, Commissioners Jeff Kennard, County Administrator Randy Oliver, and County Attorney Denise Lynn.
Thank you very much. Approval of the agenda, we have been asked to add item E14, which is a change in meeting dates, which we'll discuss when we get to it, and also deletion of E10. Is that correct, Mr. Oliver?
That is correct.
Okay, so with those changes, I'd be looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the agenda with the removal of E10 and the addition of
E14.
E14. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Schleybaugh, second by Commissioner Kennard. Any further board discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. And that passes, I'm going to say unanimous delay, but it's 4-0 as will be recorded. Commissioner Carnahan had a family, I'll say, issue we had to deal with. So. Okay, so next is the consent agenda. We have items B1 through B 11, Commissioners?
Mr. Chair, motion to approve the consent agenda in its entirety.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Kennard, second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Is there any further board discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay, and that passes unanimously. So, let's move on to item C, which I believe is C1 and C2 proclamations.
Motion to approve items C1 and C2.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Kennard makes a motion, second by Commissioner Davis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passes unanimously. Commissioners, let's go down front and give out some proclamations. All the women's veterans, come on up.
The Board of County Commissioners of Citrus County, Florida Proclamation Women's Veterans Day. Whereas the first Women's Veterans Day was held on June 12, 2018, marking the 70th anniversary of the signing into law by President Harry S. Truman, the Women's Armed Forces Integration Act. And whereas the Women's Armed Forces Integration Act gave women permanent status as members of the United States Armed Forces. And whereas Citrus County would like to pay respect for women's dutiful service, and whereas Women's Veterans Day is an opportunity to recognize the contributions, highlights, and challenges of women in the United States Armed Forces. Whereas 14 states currently have recognized June 12th as Women's Veterans Day. Now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Citrus County, Florida does hereby proclaim June 12, 2022 as Women's Veterans Day in Citrus County, Florida, in an honor and tribute to the women veterans, thanking them for their dedication and exceptional service to our nation, the United States of America. Executed on this 24th day of May 2022, signed by all 5 county commissioners.
We just want to thank the Board of County Commissioners for their recognition for us. We work very hard in our county to support different nonprofits in our county and to help our own and to help others in need. So we thank you for this recognition, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, we appreciate you.
The Board of County Commissioners of Citrus County, Florida Proclamation Tobacco,
Folks, for the Tobacco Free Florida Week, if you're involved in this, come on up. Come on, stand in front of these lovely folks. Be there Thursday. Yep, you get in front. Right over here. Take care. Who's gonna be receiving? Come on.
okay.
Never been watched by millions of people. All around the world. Okay.
The Board of County Commissioners of Citrus County, Florida Proclamation Tobacco Free Florida Week. Whereas while smoking in Florida is low overall, there are geographic and demographic inequalities across the state. And whereas Tobacco Free Florida is a statewide campaign dedicated to identifying innovative solutions in order to achieve health equity across Florida and help reduce tobacco use among disparate groups, especially in rural areas and certain subpopulations. And whereas tobacco control programs can work toward health equity by focusing efforts on decreasing the prevalence of tobacco use and secondhand smoke exposure, and improving access to tobacco control resources among populations experiencing greater tobacco-related health and economic burdens. And whereas Tobacco Free Florida's Quit Your Way program gives tobacco users in all counties access to free tools and services to help them quit. And whereas Tobacco Free Florida and Citrus County Tobacco Free Partnership focused on addressing tobacco-related health disparities and improving health equity in tobacco prevention and control in Citrus County, and is committed to the goals and objectives of Tobacco Free Florida Week through a variety of public health activities and programs. Now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Citrus County, Florida, does hereby proclaim May 8th through May 14th, 2022 as Tobacco-Free Florida Week in Citrus County, Florida, executed on this 24th day of May 2022, executed by all 5 county commissioners.
Hello, council members. My name is Isabel Baxter, and I am president of the Citrus County Students Working Against Tobacco. I am also part of the Youth Advocacy Board for Tobacco-Free Florida. My goal today is to take this time to outline the benefits of supporting education and tobacco prevention within our community on vaping, point of sale, secondhand smoke, litter rates, and increasing positive health behaviors. Here are some key facts to consider regarding tobacco. Tobacco kills up to half of its users. According to the Florida Health Tobacco Survey, the number of citrus teens ages 11 to 17 who currently use alleged vaping has more than tripled. In 2019 in Citrus County, 20% of adults are current smokers. Tobacco kills more than 8 million people each year, with more than 7 million of those deaths caused by direct use of tobacco and around 1.2 million as a result of non-smokers being exposed to secondhand smoke. Nearly 9 out of 10 cigarette smokers first try cigarette smoking by the age of 18. There is no safe level of nicotine. Research has shown that cigarette smoke contains more than 7,000 chemicals, and 69 of those chemicals are cancer-causing. E-cigarette aerosol is not water vapor and contains heavy metals such as nickel, tin, and lead. Children who breathe secondhand smoke are more likely to have lung problems, ear infections, and severe asthma. Among adults, exposure can cause lung cancer, stroke, and heart disease. Our goal is to increase community awareness of the hazards of tobacco use and vaping. We hope to educate the residents of Inverness on these issues by regular attendance at the City of Inverness events. And through our local tobacco-free partnership with Citrus County brings together a diverse group of concerned community partners to prevent initiation of tobacco use among youth and young adults, eliminate secondhand smoke exposure for all Citrus County residents, and promote cessation for tobacco and nicotine use. While words are important, actions and examples are a far more powerful force when it comes to helping individuals for positive health behaviors. Our Students Working Against Tobacco Youth would like to work collaboratively with city officials to create a healthier Citrus County. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. As the young ladies are leaving, I'll make a comment personally. I can tell you I quit 31 years ago, and I know that because my oldest son was born 31 years ago. So that's how I celebrated by quitting smoking, and makes it easy to keep track of how long it's been. So pass that on to your friends. It's never too early to stop, not start, or too late to quit. Thank you. Okay, let's see. We are now going to move into And I must say, it's always special every time we have veterans here, but when you see a group of them like the lady veterans here, that's really very special, and our community is very blessed to have folks like that. Okay, this is open to the public. Anyone here wish to address the board at this time, please come forward. You'll be given 3 minutes. If you have a letter on file with the clerk, she'll let us know, and then you'll get 5 minutes, so just let us know. Yes, sir, please come up. Make sure also anybody speaking that you fill out a green card before, after, or during.
Good afternoon. My name is Timothy Gilbert. I'm the Democratic candidate for County Commissioner in District 4. I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce myself today, but also thank each and every one of you directly. So, Commissioner, thank you. Chairman, thank you. Commissioner, thank you. Commissioner, thank you. It is without debate, you guys all have a tough job up here. Not only do you listen and to other sides, you advocate for your constituents, your family, your friends, your neighbors, the other commissioners, county administrators, and coalesce political affiliations and responsibilities. I know that each and every one of you have the best intentions and interests of our county at heart, and that none of you approaches responsibility bestowed upon you with malice or bad faith. Inevitably, hard decisions will be made that are sometimes not supported by all, Or for that, again, I applaud your tenacity to endure through these difficult decisions. I look forward to creating an open forum and dialogue for all of us to discuss these matters, and I feel that our county would better flourish economically, environmentally, and I feel that our quality of life will improve once we can all get back to the discussion table. We need to develop, reunite, and grow this amazing county that we all love and we all call home. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board now? Yes.
Yes, I'm Chloe Poole, and I'm about the core civic non-performance assessment. And there are federal inmates in there that have been, he is ordered by a doctor in 2017 to have a vital liver test done, and they still have not done it. I know that it may have a lot to do with understaffing, but they have no voice, and CCA or core civic, however you want to see it, is not paying attention to them. And that man's almost 70 years old, and he's been ignored. I mean, when a doctor orders for a vital test to be done and they just fail to, I think that would fall under your non-performance assessment. So just hope that you would take that into consideration, that all across all areas it's affecting the prison. And I would just hate to see another inmate die. I've already lost 2 good friends to that jail in the past 10 years, and I just don't want to see it happen again. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the board at this time? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Heiko Kallenbach. I reside in Beverly Hills. I'm currently the chairman of the Aviation Advisory Board, and as such, had the honor of being selected to a 40-member panel to perform a strategic planning workshop for Citrus County. This workshop was sponsored by Commissioner Davis, attended by Commissioner Schleba and Kennard. Veronica Kampschroer did a yeoman's job of putting us all together and keeping us on track. We had numerous county staff on hand to help keep us informed as to what we needed to do. The workshop was led by Mr. Bob Lee of the Center for Florida Local Government Excellence, and he started off the presentation by having Randy Oliver give us a comprehensive overview on the practical aspects of getting things done in local county government, which was a great help. We then went through a SWOT analysis in which we determined the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to our community and our way of life. We followed that up finally at the end of day 2 with an agreement on a vision statement for our home and a strategic plan on how best we might realize that vision and maintain it. The results of our work are now in front of you, the board, for your consideration. We thank you very much for the time you've taken and will continue to review our plan and hopefully make it your own. We even came up with a motto, a tagline, if you will: Citrus County, where nature and community thrive. Perfect for a billboard or a business card. In any case, please know that we 40 committed not only to the workshop, but also to a long-term task of monitoring your progress in carrying out this very important work. So please do not hesitate to call on any of us if you need any further information or assistance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board at this time? Anyone else? Okay, we will close public comment, and we will ask the commissioners if they want to respond to anything they heard. Commissioner Schleibach?
No, Timothy,
Okay.
good luck. I'm sorry, I said no, sorry. Good luck. Look forward to hearing more about you. And for Civic, I think we have a board that's looking in, we meet, and Public Safety Board, and we look at that and speak with them. And Heiko, thank you. I like your tagline. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Davis?
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Gilbert, starting, or continuing the conversation. When you say conversation, of course, that implies respectful conversation, and we could use a whole lot more of committed residents having respectful conversations, because none of us know the right answers for everything all the time, and having more minds involved is often a good thing. And Mr. Kallenbach, thank you for your service on the 40-member panel for the strategic plan. And thanks for being willing to hold us accountable for that going forward. This is a reminder for any of the 38 that aren't sitting here in this room that we need to, as well as y'all, that we're going to be town halling this, workshopping it for the rest of the year. So I have committed to co-present with anybody that brings me a speaking opportunity for this, so we can get feedback from our residents on the strategic plan and what our priorities and goals are. So, thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Kennard.
Yeah, Mr. Gilbert, it was nice to hear from you. Good to see you. Thank you. And Core Civic, I assume we're going to get an update again today about whether or not they're performing and staffed appropriately, or where we're at there, or where they're at anyway. And Mr. Kalmbach, thank you for serving on the Aviation Board, and as well as bringing the strategic plan comments. Well said.
And I will just say ditto to all of that. So, times 3. Okay, very good. So we will now move into regular business. The first item is bids. We have bids A through D. Commissioners, you want to do them separately or as a unit?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
motion to approve item E1, A through D.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Kennard, second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any public comment on the motion? Any further board discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
E5, a question for our attorney.
E5?
E.5.
We're doing E1.
We're on
A through
E1,
D.
A through D.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I got ahead of myself.
That's okay. A1, A,
Then no comment.
E1, A through D. Okay, so no further on that. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay, and that passes unanimously. Okay, now we'll go to E2, please. Mr. Oliver.
Yes, approved budget transfers for solid waste, Beverly Hills, MSBU, fire, housing services, emergency medical services, and detention services for fiscal year 21-22.
Motion to approve E2.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Davis makes the motion, second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public comment? Any board discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay, and that is unanimous. E3, please.
Adopt and authorize the chairman to execute a resolution amending library services budget neighborhood stabilization program, Older Americans Act Title III C1, Older Americans Act Title III C2, Restore Act Northwest Quadrant Sewer Force Main Project Grant budgets, and Animal Services budget for fiscal year 21-22.
Commissioners?
Motion to approve E3.
Second.
So Commissioner Davis makes the motion, second by Commissioner Schleybaugh. Is there any public comment? Further board discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay, and that is unanimous. E4, please.
Yes, approve termination of the waste disposal agreement between Jorgensen Contract Services LLC and the county dated August 24th, 2004. B, return security deposit and additional credit balance in the sum of $1,012.42 to Jorgensen Contract Services LLC.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve E4.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Commissioner Schleybaugh, second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any public comment? Any more board discussion? All in favor say
Chair.
aye. Yep, sorry.
Sorry. Does that include A and B?
Move to approve E4, A and B.
A and B,
Thank you.
yes.
Second.
Okay, yes.
It's already been a long day.
Okay, so again, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. And it passes unanimously. That's why we count on the clerk to keep us on our toes here when it goes along. Okay, E5, please.
E5 is an informational item that discusses funds bequest to the Citrus County Animal Shelter and the Citrus County services in the Citrus County Animal Shelter.
So this is informational only. There's no action needed.
There's no action needed.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure. Yes, Commissioner Schleybaugh.
Denise, I read it as $8,810.02 goes to the services, and then the $90,000 to the Citrus County Animal Shelter, old or new?
It doesn't make a distinction, it just says Citrus
Okay.
County Animal Shelter.
Okay. So they can use it now or later?
They can use it on the current shelter, or they can use it on the upcoming shelter, and then, but the services have to be just animal services.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other questions on E5? Let's go on to E6 then.
E6, approve and authorize chairman to accept the donation of perpetual utility and access easement centered on the construction pipe located from Prime Forest Partners and Stonebrook Community LLC. B, authorize clerk to place acceptance stamp on the perpetual utility and access easement recorded in the public records of Citrus County, Florida.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve E6A and B.
Second.
Okay, so Commissioner Slabaugh makes the motion, Commissioner Davis seconds it. Is there any public comment? Any further board discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay, and that passes unanimously. E7, please.
Yes, E7, adopt and authorize chairman to execute a resolution authorizing the execution of an application, resulting contract, any amendments, and other necessary documents after review by the county attorney for the Transportation Disadvantaged Trip Equipment Program for the period effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30, 2023.
Motion to approve E7.
Second.
Commissioner Davis makes the motion, second by Commissioner Slabaugh. Is there any public comment? Further board discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay, and that passes unanimously. E8, please.
Yes, E8, we're asking you to concur with the recommendation action of non-performance assessment of $75,000 against Core Civic. We have been having a little bit of difficulty reconciling their payroll reports against what they're reporting to us, and we have asked for access to the telestaff system, which they use and we also use for fire. So that will give us a better indication of that, but that is our recommendation.
Commissioners?
Motion to approve E8.
Second.
So Commissioner Davis makes the motion, second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public comment? Excuse me, if you want to speak, you need to come up to the microphone and give us your name again, and you'll have up to 3 minutes to speak.
Yes, my name's Chloe Poole. Is there any way you can assess a higher amount than that? Because obviously it's not getting any action because they've been negligent in everything. I mean, it's just ridiculous that they keep getting away with this, and they obviously aren't telling the whole story, and they're supposed to be making it cheaper than a county could run it. But if you look at Marion County and our county and the differences, he said, let me show you how much cheaper he can do it. So they're obviously more expensive, and people are dying in there, and it's just, I just don't think it's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak on this motion? Okay, Mr. Oliver, can you answer that question? I mean, this is contractually calculated, isn't it?
It's contractually calculated. The county's permitted a fine $2,500 per infraction. Okay, we do not, go in and look at medical records because of HIPAA concerns and things like that. The lady indicated this was a federal inmate, which the federal government would have oversight over that particular aspect of it.
Okay.
But $2,500 per infraction would be the maximum amount under the contract that can be fined.
Okay, thank you. Board, any other questions on E8?
Yeah, Mr.
Yes,
Chair?
yes, sir.
Randy, at what point, if we continue to assess them, these fees or penalties against payment, at what point do we bring that contract back forward and consider whether or not we want to go forward, continue going forward with Core Civic? Or at what point do we have that ability to revisit that?
Well, there would be a process that I would need to work with the county attorney on. You would have to give them a notice of default and give them right to cure.
Okay.
There's a process that would have to be gone through. I would say that's a monumental endeavor.
Yeah.
Pasco's going through something similar to that right now.
Okay. It just, it's concerning that certainly there are a lot of staffing issues across many businesses, but those businesses aren't charged with holding inmates for the county and the federal government. And I'd like to see Core Civic more closely stick to their contractual requirements.
We also need to remember that a large percentage of the inmates, unfortunately, that are in institutional facilities, they have other issues such as mental health issues.
Sure.
And they're not really, detention facilities aren't well suited to serve that population.
Right.
Okay, any other board comments? Okay, on the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay, and that passes unanimously. E9, please.
Approve and authorize the chairman to execute a resolution supporting the application to and budgeting for the Withlacoochee Regional Water Supply Authority Local Government Water Conservation Grants Program in the amount of $35,075 for the Department of Water Resources Water Conservation Program. The county match is funded through Citrus County Utilities Enterprise Fund. We're getting our own money back.
That's right.
So I'm waiting for Commissioner Kennard to jump up and make a motion to
Yeah.
approve this, so.
Well, any way we can get our money back out of that, that board, I'm all for it, so I'll make the motion.
Okay,
Second.
so I have a motion by Commissioner Kennard, second by Commissioner Slabaugh. Is there any public comment? Any further board discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That passes unanimously. Item E10 has been pulled. Move on to E11.
Yes, approve and authorize the chairman to execute the nutrition agreement between Citrus County and the Citrus County Health Department, which provides for the service of a public health nutritionist to assist in the requirements for nutrition services funded under the Mid-Florida Area Agency on Aging, doing business as Elder Options 2022 OAA Grant Award, as well as anticipated 23-24 OAA Title 3B, C1, C2, 3E grants.
Motion to approve E11.
Second.
So Commissioner Davis makes a motion, second by Commissioner Slabaugh. Is there any public comment? Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That passes unanimously. We're now going to move to the 1:30 presentation of the annual financial report, which is item H1. I believe the clerk is ready with that. Only missed it by 2 minutes there, so.
You saw me over there, didn't you?
Now, I was
Or you
seeing if I could
felt
get,
me.
I was waiting to see if we could get all the way through, but I didn't want to push it.
You did well, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. We appreciate the opportunity and are very, very pleased to bring the annual comprehensive financial report to present that to you this afternoon. I know that I would like to thank you, Mr. Chair, for your assistance and partnership and getting this report to you, and I believe I also owe you, thank you, Commissioner Kennard, for some assistance with that as well. We had a little bit of a challenge with an aspect of the report, getting the report finalized, but are very happy to report that we were able to get it done, and with the partnership of Mr. Oliver and Colleen as well. In response to your request to me, Commissioner Slabaugh, to provide it a little bit earlier than 2 or 3 days, because it is a very large document for you to be able to read. Typically, we would be able to get it to you a little bit quicker. We actually, as of yesterday or today, it was still in draft form. It was a draft, I believe, when it came to you the first time. So we will definitely make a note of that for next year, that as soon as we have a document that, as soon as it can be circulated to you, we will get it to you, because, and I appreciate that feedback, because it is a very important document. There's a tremendous amount of information contained in these pages that is educational and informative and helpful to you. And I know that you love to read it, Ron. So,
I do.
Mr. Chair,
It keeps me up at night in a good way.
It is awesome. It is awesome. So today we are here to present the annual, the comprehensive, or the annual comprehensive report, as well as our money matters. This is the ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, and then this is the PAFR. It's the Popular Annual Financial Report, which is a condensed version, kind of a broken down version that highlights a lot, the information comes from this large document, but it breaks it down into a much more digestible and easy to understand for anyone who is interested in the statistics and where your money comes from, where your money goes. It's a great document, and I want to thank my team, Tracy Phillips, my chief of staff, Susan Sullivan, my senior financial accountant, Sharice Parrish, Shelley Sansone, so many people in our finance division that really make this happen. It is a tremendous amount of work, this compilation of this report. There's so much that goes into it and could not be done without their dedication and commitment to it. So to formally present this and speak to the content of the report in a more detailed manner, I would like to introduce Joel Knopp from Moore Stevens Lovelace. Joel has been with this firm for a very long time and has over 20 years of experience in accounting and auditing. And he has led this team quite well, or led this particular audit quite well over this past year. And it's been educational for all of us as we've had to learn how to navigate some things together. And we appreciate very much their partnership. So Joel, let you take it over.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Chairman Kitchen, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here and present a few highlights from the annual comprehensive financial report, as well as discuss some of our required auditor communications. There's a few bullet points I want to cover. Just there's a separate letter that we provided, but it's just under our professional standards. There's certain communications to those charged with governance, and that's you as the Board of County Commissioners. So first off, our responsibilities were to audit the financial statements in accordance with government audit standards, as well as the Florida Auditor General Rules, as well as the uniform guidance as it pertains to the single audit or federal grants audit. Management's responsibility was to maintain effective internal controls and provide us with the information we needed for the audit, as well as take responsibility for the financial statements. And we received a representation letter at the end of the audit that was done by management, and that they did provide us with everything we needed. That required communications letter is also used if there were significant matters that were needing to be communicated as part of the audit. If we did not receive full cooperation from management, or there were audit adjustments that were required due to identifying misstatements during the audit. I am pleased to report there were no audit adjustments, that the financial numbers that were provided by the Clerk Finance and Comptroller Office were accurate and fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. If you want to go to the next slide. I do want to cover our reports, which are really what we deliver at the conclusion of the audit. So you'll find our first report on the financial statements on page 1, and that is where we provide our opinion on the financial statements, that they are indeed presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and fairly stated. So that was a clean report. I will point out we had an emphasis of matter in that report related to a new accounting standard that was implemented by the clerks and by the county in fiscal year 21, and that related to the presentation of the fiduciary activities, which were previously shown as agency funds in the county's report, now shown as custodial funds. And there's a little different presentation. There's actually an activity statement of additions and deductions within those funds for fiscal year 21. The remaining reports are primarily compliance focused, and you'll find those at the back of the document in the compliance section. First one is government audit standards. Under government audit standards, we look at internal controls over financial reporting, as well as compliance that's significant to the financial statements. And that was a clean report. There were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses that we identified. And then the single audit report covers both the federal, the major grants that we determined needed to be tested at both the federal level and the state level. And you'll find that on page 155. That was also a clean report. There were no internal controls over compliance issues noted, and no compliance findings as well. The management letter you'll find following that, and we did have, in regards to the federal grants audit, we did look at the CARES Act audit, and there was one issue, and Ms. Vick mentioned as part of the wrap-up of the audit that delayed things a little bit as we worked through an issue with the Nature Coast EMS and making sure that there was a formalized agreement in place related to the use of CARES funds. But that document was obtained and approved by the county, and so we did recommend in our management letter that there be make sure that there's a formalized agreement in place with any future types of agreements with third parties or nonprofit organizations as to the roles and responsibilities that lie there. So, but beyond that, there was no other issues noted. The independent accounts report relates to the county's investment compliance as well as the E911 expenditures, and that was also a clean report. So a few financial highlights at the top level or full accrual level for the financial statements. Kind of the interesting swing for fiscal year 21, you'll see in the total liabilities line item for both governmental and business type. You'll see a significant reduction over 2020, and that's primarily due to the net pension liability, which the county has a proportionate share in the Florida retirement system due to the timing of the market and the value of investments in the FRS plan as of June 30, 2021, which was the measurement date for the liability. That was at the time when the market was kind of at an all-time high. So that the plan showed a significant improvement in its assets, and which reduced the liability that goes along to the members of the plan. And so that's the cause for the decrease. It's not all recognized immediately by the member participants, and it's intended under accounting principles to be smoothed out over 5 years. So it kind of avoids the big swings in the activity, but that is accounted for in this total deferred inflows of resources, which you see was kind of the offset to that liability reduction as that deferred inflows increased accordingly for both governmental and business type activities. At the end of the day, the change in net position for governmental was a positive 26 million, and business type 11 million. A significant piece on the governmental side was the CARES Act funding that the county was able to use eligible costs for that grant funding, and which freed up, other funds that the county did not have to use for the same purpose. So, on the general fund side, also an improvement there in the unassigned fund balance, and the net change in fund balance was a significant increase as well at 12.7 million. A very healthy unassigned fund balance percentage as it relates to total expenditures of 26.7%. Again, a lot of that's CARES Act related. And then from a budget compliance perspective, the county actually budgeted to spend down its fund balance by 9 million. You can see there were total revenues over budget of 8.1 million. Expenditures were under budget by 13.5 million, so it's a positive budget variance of 21.6 million compared to what was budgeted to be spent during fiscal year 21. And then lastly, the proprietary funds. We have a look here at the major enterprise funds of the county, the sanitary, landfill, and public utility. The important thing there is just that they did have positive operating income and healthy unrestricted net position at the end of the fiscal year. So I did want to express my appreciation also to the clerk finance team and all their assistance throughout the audit, as well as the county with Randy and his office there. It was really a team effort, and I think the county should be proud of the results of the audit. I'm very very healthy financial position, and compliance, always important. So I'd like to express my appreciation for that effort, and those were my prepared remarks, but if there's any other questions, I'm glad to answer.
I had a couple. First of all, I apologize for missing the exit conference. We kind of had a room full of people down here that required my attention at the time. So, you know, we've been through this before. You know the questions I always ask, and you answered them all. I don't ask anymore, was there fraud, theft, or anything like that. Now I just ask, were everybody forthcoming with the information you requested, and you stated that at the very beginning. So again, the takeaway I keep hearing is a healthy financial position. And I'm sure, just as you said, with the liabilities on the pension plan, we'll see a somewhat different swing next year. And with no COVID money coming, I'm sure we'll see a swing in that way as well, too. So to me, this is a great thing that shows that we managed to not go crazy on our spending on one-time income, realizing that's what it was going to be. Right. So but I just want to ask you, because, you know, we are very proud of everybody, the clerk's office and our own financial team at the county. Randy told me main thing I missed was that it was a big team effort to get it over the finish line, and it was well. So for a county our size, in your experience, you know, how would you rank us on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, I mean, certainly from a financial team perspective and just the ability to cooperate and get things done, yeah, you're right up there, 9 or 10. I mean, great. I mean, we had numerous conference calls throughout the process, and, you know, it was Randy and Colleen and the clerk finance team and the audit team, and we're all, you know, working through the issues together. So I think, you know, it just goes to show the partnership that's here, and hopefully that can continue.
Great. And any other comment for us, see if the board has any? You know, again, I'm always fascinated by the numbers, and a lot of people think that's strange, but I'm just that way. I spend as much time with our credit card bill as most people do with, you know, whatever. But I just want to say that people should understand that audits are good things. You know, right. A lot of times people start yelling, "Oh, do an audit, do an audit." Well, we do. We do audits all the time. But, you know, my position, and I think all of our position, is audits are good things. Because if we're doing things right, that's good. If we're doing something wrong, we want to know about it so we can fix it and correct it. So that's why I always look at, you know, if there's any findings and what management's response. I've seen nothing like that. I mean, so this was pretty squeaky clean, was it not? To use
yes.
That's not a professional term, but I would throw that at you.
Correct, yes, that would be.
Great.
That'd be my take on it.
Great, very good. Commissioners, any comments? No. Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Suggle.
That is the one thing that Mr. Chairman and I have in common. I love the numbers. My favorite job is balancing the bank statements. I love to get them to zero. But I love this. I think there's so much information. My first one is actually a blur, so I really got to enjoy this one. Okay. And I appreciate the work that goes into it. You know, I have several members that are in my family that are CPAs. One's a forensic CPA, so I get how difficult it is to get to this point, and I appreciate it. I had to rush it because I had the agenda also to read, but I left you a message, Tracy, so I'd like to dig deeper, and by next year I should be an expert, right? Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember my first year in office, at the time, I had the people from the OMB and the clerk's office probably could have made my office their second office, because they would come in they'd leave with 15 pages of questions. And so anyway, anything down here, folks? Any comments? All right, great. Madam Clerk, you want to wrap it up?
I will. Thank you so much, Joel.
Thank you again for excellent presentation, really.
Yes, very. I want to just take a moment for a special recognition of someone that's here today. The beautiful photos. Where is he? There he is. The beautiful photos that are included on these documents and within were were contributed to us by no less than former County Administrator Gary Cole.
I thought there was a familiar face out there.
Gary has allowed us to use his work for the past 3 years, and 2 or 3 years? 2 years, better get that right in case he doesn't know we're using his photos. And they do so well in demonstrating what this community is about, which is the Nature Coast, and a beautiful place to live. And it brings that message, just really pushes that message home with the wonderful photography that he is a tremendous asset. So thank you very much again.
You know, and it may sound silly because it's binding a lot of numbers and information, but with that kind of cover on it, it's very difficult to get rid of, you know, so you just have a tendency to leave it on your desk or your bookshelf, so you have something nice to look at there, you know. Thank you so much. Thank you again
Thank you,
for.
Mr. Chair.
We take you for granted and your team. I mean, so don't think we do, but we appreciate all the awesome work you guys all do, so.
They're amazing.
Yes.
They're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we are back to, I believe, item E12, Mr. Oliver.
Yes. E12 is something that I don't think the board's ever done before, but this is a franchise holder, and this is for the Water Wastewater Authority. The board has to give the certificate. E12 is issuance of a certificate, franchise certificate for Haggerty Point.
Yes, that's it. You got it.
But this is something that I don't think this board has ever done before. But it's an area that serves residents with a private water supply group. There's a common well and things like that, and this vests the regulatory control in the Water Wastewater Board. So we would ask you to approve a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Citrus County, Political Subdivision, State of Florida, pursuant to Section 102-254 and Section 102-269, parens 2 of Citrus County Code of Ordinances, and issue a final order to issue water certificate number 18W for Haggerty Point Water System and provide for an effective date. B, authorize the chairman to execute, and issuance of water franchise certificate 018W for Haggerty Point Water System.
Board, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve item E12, A, B, and B has A, B, C, D.
Second.
Okay.
I'm not following.
Yeah, you said A, B, C, D.
I'm looking, I just want to explain something. There's been several times already this meeting where my printed agenda does not match the online agenda, and I have triple checked the date. I have the correct printed agenda. So I'm pretty confused up here, staff. Just saying, there must have been a lot of late changes to the agenda, and all the numbers are scrambled between my print edition and
There-
online edition.
There weren't any
my
late
apologies for
changes that
interrupting.
I'm aware of, but
Well,
I
can
need
show
to
you
check and
after
see,
this meeting
yeah, if I
because it
can
is
check.
scrambled.
Because, yeah, minute track, I know there's been persistent problems. The clerk's changing minute track and looks to do it October 1st, but yeah, I'd like to get a better
I'll let somebody else make the
understanding
motion.
of that, yes.
So we're dealing with E12, A and B as you read them. That's what I'm dealing with.
Yes.
Okay. Because I was following along on the printed agenda as you read it, so that's what the motion would be. So I had you down as making a motion.
Motion for E12, A and B.
Okay. Is there a second?
And I second it.
Okay, Commissioner Kennard, second. Is there any public comment? Any further board discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. And that passes unanimously.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I missed something. Can I say something? It's just a
Sure.
I'm so sorry. I was daydreaming for a second. On the agenda packet backup, it just says, which is probably nothing, but on page 326 of the printed, it has Haggerty Point Government Notice Mailing List, David Brunel, City Hall, and then Ken Cheek, Citrus County Water Resources.
Yeah.
Ken is right, but David Brunel, I mean, is
Yeah,
that?
it needs to, it should be, it should be the current city manager. You're
Okay,
correct.
it's just a typo. Thank you, sir.
Okay, sure. Okay, E13.
Yes, E13 is authorize the chairman to sign the letter and send it to Robert Esposito, Executive Director of the Hernando Citrus MPO, to consider placing a traffic signal at US 41 and Airport Road. This was something that the board asked for at the last workshop, and we're bringing that forward for official action, which can only be taken at a notice meeting.
And it appears the draft letter expresses the discussion from that, so what say you, board?
Motion to approve item E13.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Kennard makes a motion, second by Commissioner Slabaugh. Is there any public discussion? Any board discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Item E14, please.
Yes, E14 moves the date of the budget presentation from the Wednesday after the board meeting until that Tuesday morning, and will result in the rescheduling the workshop schedule for that morning. This was necessary because the court system had a large trial that they were going to be calling about 400 jurors in on that Wednesday and Thursday, and they needed this space. So they asked that we accommodate that change.
So for the folks that don't have the benefit of a copy of this, since it was a last-minute addition, we would be moving to cancel the Wednesday, July 27th preliminary budget hearings concerning library, fire protection, and BOCC, and reschedule those for Tuesday, the day before, the 26th, which also means that would be on the morning of the meeting, which means we would cancel the workshop that was scheduled for the Tuesday, 26th, and reschedule for the future. And then they will actually put that in on the day of July 12th to use with the boat launch fees discussion as well, right? So we're going to cancel budget hearings, move them one day forward, cancel that workshop, and move it to combine it on July 12th.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. So those dates again, July 27th moved to July 26th, and July 26th workshop moved to July 12th. That would be the motion we'd be looking for.
I move to approve E14.
Okay?
Second.
Commissioner Slabaugh makes the motion, second by Commissioner Davis. Public have any comments, questions? Commissioners, anything else? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That passes unanimously. Item F, please.
Yes, there are no changes to this list. However, there were a number of things that were on this agenda that we'll clean up the next time, but there are no changes.
Okay, so no action needed. So you want to move on to G1 then, Mr. Oliver?
Yes, G1 and G2 kind of go together. What we're proposing here is to change the solid waste rates 10-1. We're proposing to increase the construction and demolition rates from $60 a ton to $120. The reason is that the C&D pits have raised their rates to 90, and as a result of that, we're getting construction and demolition debris in our solid waste, which is a line landfill, which is not a good thing. So we are bringing our rates up above theirs so that will financially provide an incentive for them to go back to the other. The other thing we're proposing is an 8% increase into the tipping fee, which will raise it for the two cities from $33.23 to $35.88. It's not been increased in several years. I would note that, and then also for the certified hauler, the rate will go from $30 a ton to $33 a ton. Each residential household, for your information, generates roughly 1.1 tons of waste, and that translates into about 27 cents a month. So they'll probably put a notice into their customers that the county's increased those rates, and that will be a true statement. How they characterize the increase will be more interesting.
Yeah, I was going to say we're going to increase it $3, and they're going to probably up their customers 20, and they're going to say that's because the county increased theirs, right?
They've increased their rates substantially in the last 3 to 6 months. You know what they're going to do, but and then G1 and then G2 is to actually set the public hearing for solid waste fees and the rates. I would note that we are in the process of going through a rate study to determine what the time is, because we have a lot of citizens that bring their waste personally to landfill. It takes longer to process them than it does a big truck, because the big trucks are barcoded, and they can just run by and it reads the weight, does everything, and they don't even have to have any human interaction. So we're evaluating how we can better do that, but we are in the process of doing a rate study on that, but that would not come to fruition until 10/1 of '23.
Okay, so we need a couple things here. First of all, you want the board to give you some direction on the proposed solid waste fees, the assessment, correct?
Yes, sir.
My point is, they look fine to me for all the reasons you stated. And they still seem very reasonable. I mean, I've been lately taking quite a few things to the landfill, and it seems very reasonable, and obviously, a lot of people like it because it's always a line when I go out there. So, Commissioners, any thought on the rates, fees, whatever? Okay, so with that
The
said.
pass rates are going up 8% too. but-
Right. So, yeah, but still, even at that, you're going for a senior citizen, $80 a year to take up to 8 30-gallon containers per week to the landfill. That seems pretty reasonable for, for folks that so adamantly wanted to take their own, trash to the landfill. That's pretty reasonable, So if that's the case, then now we would need to, if we're good with the rates, we need to vote to set the public hearing for the adoption of the rates. Is that correct? And
Yes,
that's
sir.
G2, A, and B. So, board members, that's what we'd be looking for, is approval of G2, A, and B.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve item G2, A, and B.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, that's made by Commissioner Kennard, second by Commissioner Davis. Madam Attorney, is that fine as far as acknowledgement of those?
Yes.
Okay, great. Any public comment on the motion? Any further board discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passes unanimously. G3, please.
Yes, G3 is just an update for the board. We've gotten the document in from the FSU school, and Veronica's going to be making a presentation. She's done a tremendous job of coordinating this and putting it all together. I would note that this is the framework and that there will be significant work to put what I call the meat on the bones and ensuring that the financial resources are there to implement whatever you all decide to do with, because we can have a lot of good ideas, but if the financial resources aren't there, it isn't going to get done. So with that, I'll turn it over to Veronica.
It's okay. We do get paid 92 cents an hour, so this is running against our clock here.
Well, thank you guys for having me up here to talk about this today. I appreciate Randy giving me the opportunity to give this overview to you through this process. Everyone here has had some role in this, from the beginning portions with the board interviews all the way to attending the workshops, which were well attended, as you'll see through some of these photos, and we so appreciate having a few of our workshop participants here today. I think we saw a couple more back there, Mike Zerwinski also, and probably many more have been here and been active in the community from the time that they left that room to what we've been working on getting this prepared for you guys. And I do apologize in advance, I am not feeling my greatest today, so this is not going to be my greatest presentation, but it's really interesting information, and I think that you guys will benefit from it. So next slide, please. We're going to go over the strategic planning, and I won't bore you with the pedantic, details and definitions, but I did want to get this out here just so everyone's on the same page as to what we're looking for, which was a strategic plan. So this was something that you, as board, had approved to go out and consult with originally the Central or the South UCF. I'm sorry, United. I told you, I'm not feeling well today. I'm actually
That's okay.
seriously not feeling well today. So the original schools, FIOG, that we had the agreement with, I've been working on it since then and trying to get these things in order. But the strategic plan is going to be used to communicate the organizational identity, the strategic goals, and the actions that are going to be needed to achieve those goals for any organization. So it's pretty broad brush. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. But it does work for the organization, and the reason for that is because these plans are tailored to the individual organization that goes through the process. So who created our plan? It was you guys as the county board. It was staff as well, the FSU, Florida Institute of Government, and the Citrus County citizens and residents. So we really appreciate those who did participate in this process. If you go to the next slide. Something that was unique about this process from Dr. Bob Lee that he identified was that the focus of this process was citizen input, and the process was citizen-driven overall. A lot of times these processes are done internally in governments through their staff opinions, which is very helpful, and that is a component. You definitely want to listen to what your staff has to say in a process like this, which is why it was part of the first agreement that we had. Now, just to clarify, that's not part of the current agreement that we're working with, but we did have that information while going through this process as well. We did transfer any information that the incomplete agreement had gotten into the second agreement deliverable, even if it wasn't necessarily in there. Everything was taken into account. So the citizen-driven process was the most unique portion of this because it focused on the engagement of our citizens and getting their exclusive involvement in preparing a draft strategic plan. So while we had many commissioners in attendance at these public input forums, at this workshop, we had our staff, Mr. Oliver. There was no point in any of those days where staff were leading the charge. No ideas were put forth and then voted on coming from those of us who work on this side of the organization. The citizens identified their relationship with the organization, their views, all the information that was given to them in the presentation that we gave to get them up to speed on the budget and the organization, and then they went with it. So it was very hands-off on the elected officials and the staff, except for, getting the events together. But all of the results you're going to see were synthesized from citizen input and evaluation of our strengths. Next slide. So the first process of citizen input was we had 2 input forums of 2 hours each. They were listening sessions. There was nothing from staff or the board kind of dictating the rules of this. It was come up and have 3 minutes to speak on whatever you would like to speak as it relates to growth in Citrus County, your views for the future. We had a lot of people in attendance at the first forum who were probably the same group of people who are in attendance at your workshop this morning, a lot of people who have the no-build philosophy. And what we found was whether people were holding a sign that said no build, or if they came in and they said, I've lived here my whole life and we know what we have to lose, as I heard earlier on the dais, those inputs were really focused on nature, community, and coming from the same place and the same fears, the same concerns about what might happen through growth, just either focused on a more broad aspect or focused specifically on that target. I still think as you go through the responses from those citizens that there is a real strong chord of what we got back from them at these events. So we just allowed anyone who had the time to show up to speak. They also were able to email me, and I do have those emails in a saved record that we will be able to refer to as we go through final processes through this, and then when we evaluate in the future. We did 2 events, you can keep it on that side, but we did do 2 events, one in Citrus Springs in the middle of the day, one in Lecanto at 6 o'clock to try to get both the population who's available during the day and then those who may need to come to an evening session. And again, we did have an online input. So we really tried our best to get input from all sides. The stakeholder workshop was a unique change in what we had been planning from the first agreement to the second agreement. But I really love the way that it turned out. Dr. Lee had a really good vision for it. I believe that the list that the commissioners voted upon in terms of who we were to invite to appoint people to that 40 person list. We reached out to multiple groups, and I believe that might be my next slide. Multiple groups for that 40 list, and we put invitations out to these organizations and alliances. Each of them were more than happy to appoint people that they either have on their workforce or in their support organizations or just, an advocate for that organization. If I were to take the logos and names of the places and people and things that those 40 core represented outside of this, it would probably be like 5 more slides. We had a great cross-section of people in the community with all manner of focus. We were not heavy, it didn't seem like, on any one topic. I thought it was very well balanced. So we would really like to thank all these partners, including the Builders Association, Citrus 2030, the Chamber, the hospitals, the health department, and everyone else who came. It was just really an excellent group of people. And we'll go ahead and go forward to the next slide, who did a lot of work. I mean, it really was coming and doing work for 2 days. So we appreciate you not only having to take PTO from the work that you do on a daily basis, but then actually coming and using that PTO day to do a SWOT analysis with us. So the first day was very much a getting up to speed. The second day was kind of nailing these things down. So the first thing that happened was we did a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It was postured as a threats challenges, so a SWOT-C. We don't necessarily need to feel threatened by anything, hopefully, if we manage our growth well, but we can think of challenges and how we're going to really need to come up against those. So some of the strengths that were identified by that group were that we're an oasis with environmentally diverse and protected lands. That's pretty much, I think, what anybody in Citrus County who moved here for a non-work-related reason, and maybe even a work-related reason, would say, number one, nature. And that did shake out from these responses. Another strength Citrus County has is amazing, diverse, and cooperative governance and community cohesiveness with strong ties among non-government organizations, nonprofits, and local government. It's a lot of words. What that means is that is a synthesis of what is basically the impressive contingent we have of community members who are constantly interacting with our elected officials on every level. Tallahassee, the Leadership Citrus group goes up there each year, so there's 50 representatives of Citrus County and, many fewer for much larger counties. So that's something that sticks in the minds of those who are in the state government, and then it's also something that really defines our community. So that was a strength that, again, him being an outsider to our community was able to identify just through a little bit of that evaluation. And effective legislative advocacy and representation from local to state level. We've had very lucky placements in our elected officials in the last few years. That obviously won't always be such a positive case for Citrus County, but I think having a dedicated, effective legislative advocacy and representation strategy, or just focusing on that strength, if we already have that, we may as well keep it going, even if it's a little harder to get the answers we want on the other side. Next. This is the less fun slide, the weaknesses, and we know them already, right? Unattainable workforce housing, and it says jobs, but it's not unattainable jobs, it's unattainable career class jobs is what the discussion was there. Career class is what we're looking for. I heard someone in earlier public comment talking about young families. I'm gonna have to move this, you guys. Young families who will need jobs to stay in the area, and those are the jobs that we're thinking about here. So lots of jobs to get, but they may not be the kinds of jobs that people who are entering or looking to move up in the workforce can sustain for a long period of time. A lack of planning and infrastructure investment. I think that while there may have been some planning, I do think that the investment in the infrastructure is something we're working through right now. Residential road resurfacing was even hotter then in February than it is right now as a topic, I think, and so that was on a lot of people's minds when they were going through this process, but I think that infrastructure in all levels is something of a concern, both through my process with Citrus 2030, which was in 2019 and was more of a community strategic planning process. It still has similar elements to a county strategic planning process, and I think that has been a pretty steady comment throughout the last few years of my experience with this project. And then resiliency. We have workshops coming up on that, so that's great, but more is needed in terms of infrastructure investment, and we need to be adaptable. So I almost see that as an opportunity, but I'm glad that we had a weakness that could be put either or. I think we're in a pretty strong position. But if you go to the next slide, our opportunities are good. I think everyone also agrees that we're at a transition point in Citrus County, and things are going to go excellent or they're going to go the way to go. And we're not sure that those could always be the same two tracks. They could be, but the opportunities are things that we can take advantage of now to leverage them into strengths in the future. So we want to invest in the future wisely, embrace entrepreneurial opportunities, and serve as a model for resiliency. So if one of our weaknesses is that we don't have much of a resiliency plan, and we want to serve as a model of resiliency, if we were to adopt this, that seems to be just out of the gate a focus that might be dug deeper into as we go through this and flesh out the process for this year, and then also for like additions in the future once it's revisited, because this should be a living document that is not a one-time iteration and tossed. You know, this would be a commitment to this board saying, yes, we commit to this, and then obviously future boards would have to continue that, and I think that's where the citizen input comes in. If the citizens still believe in the plan, they will hold you to it, and if not, then we're in a different situation. Multiple tax opportunities with visitors paying, example, local option sales tax. TDT was highly discussed, especially in the context of Citrus County being so remarkably kind of ahead of the game right now post-COVID with our inputs, and it being just such a heavy piece of our market for economic development and jobs for tourism. So that was an object that was identified by those third-party consultants as well. And in the document that I have from him, that piece isn't fleshed out, but I think some of the documentation that I have from the actual development of the day might have a little more detail as to what that particular piece had behind it in conversation. So anything like that pertinent, I'll get to you guys. Competent leadership and a real implementation of a strategic plan. So right now we have a lot of open senior staff positions. It's a really hot market for staffing, especially in some of those industries that those staff are leaving for public for private. But I do think that is an opportunity as well to fill those positions either with really highly qualified internal staff and then hiring excellent staff into those positions, or just finding new staff members. I think there's a really great opportunity for that. And it isn't something that has to be rushed, except in the cases where we really need to get somebody on board. Obviously, we're going to be doing a huge transition here with the elections, with September to November. Randy Oliver's new administrator. Hopefully that search will have someone by then for us. If that's the case, then after our administrator following Randy is able to be comfortable, after the new commissioners that will be filling a few of the seats up here are able to get into the groove of things, and then we can really talk about getting the strategic plan implementation done with a fresh team who's all kind of starting at ground zero. So a lot of the people involved in that conversation felt that this was a very good opportunity. We're more launching the boat than trying to steer the boat, so that kind of helps. And last but not least, it has some threats and challenges. Unmitigated growth and unprepared for growth with the outdated comp plan. Comp plan's a big thing. That's obviously a hard endeavor to do overnight, but it is something that is being worked on. Unmitigated growth is a fear of our citizens. We saw that when they...
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure.
I'm just curious about, again, specifics. I keep hearing people say outdated comprehensive plan. We change the comp plan all the time.
Yes.
We update the comp plan all the time.
Correct.
So what specifics were given as far as how the comp plan is outdated?
I believe that the word outdated in this particular bullet point would be probably something that Dr. Lee included from his verbal conversations. I don't have anything written that has that word specifically attached to the comp plan. There has been discussion about, while the comp plan getting necessary changes, necessary maintenance, it hasn't been fully reevaluated in some time. I believe that might have been the conversation that was happening, and I'm thinking that's where that's coming from. Okay, I also think that there has been a history in Citrus County of using the comp plan as a strategic plan in a way. Obviously, it can't function exactly the same way, but that was our guiding document. And so we're doing a process with this document right now. That isn't something that the public sees on the comp plan, and so it might even just be a perception. But a threat that's perceived by the citizens is still a threat to us. And resources is something we're constantly working with. We have a wonderful community services department here and amazing partners inside the community, but poverty and a lack of resources are a challenge. We do a great job with that challenge in Citrus as a community, I think, but fairly listed. And then delivery of mental health and social services and retention of young professional workforce. That ties back into what I was talking about earlier, but the social services and mental health is a pretty significant threat here. We have a really robust medical sector in some ways, and then in other ways, I think there are things that we could insert a little more. That's what it seemed to me from our medical people who were at the event, who gave their input, that would be really something that would be a game changer for their particular industry, is having more facilities, more services, more doctors, and all the availability. And I think that's why he tied those things together, because the young professional workforce is required to start new practices. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So the purpose of the mission and vision statement is to communicate purpose to stakeholders. More or less, those two pieces of this process just say who we are, what we do, who we want to be when we grow up, and the person who needs to know that information is the citizen. So that's our audience for those two pieces. The strategy, the goals, all of those other things, that's where the rubber hits the road, and the staff and you guys kind of take off and get the meat on the bones, so to speak. But even if we only had a mission and vision statement, that's on top of every letterhead, that is on the website, that is on all the social media accounts. You know, that's you. That's your bio that you're putting out there. And so getting something like that defined isn't important just specifically for communications purposes only. But the entire process does have its own strengths. And if you could go to the next slide. This is what was come up with in the event by the citizen. So there's been no workshopping of this after the fact with me, with any commissioners, with any staff, with the consultant or any of his team. This is strictly, we had big sheets of paper on the walls, and when the sheets came down, this is what was written on the final synthesized version. So your vision statement, so who Citrus County wants to be, right? This is ideally who we are. We are a welcoming, economically vibrant community where people and nature live in harmony. It's got to focus on economic development. It's got to focus on the vibrancy of our community, the personal human aspect, the coexisting of nature and man, which is something that's been in a lot of iterations of Citrus 2020, Citrus 2030, and other planning organizations throughout past of Citrus County. Ever since people have been undertaking these kinds of things, the nature-man connection has been in there somewhere. We didn't give him that as a, or any of the group as a requirement. It just happened that way. So that is when we ended up with our vision statement. And our mission statement is going to be a little bit longer, right? So vision is thinner, mission extrapolates a little longer. How do we do what we want to do? So our mission, Citrus County, is to manage growth and foster prosperity by prioritizing the protection of environmental assets, the development and maintenance of infrastructure, and the health, safety, and well-being of its citizens. I think that's a pretty strong mission statement, but obviously these would be things that you guys would want to discuss when approving this strategic plan document, this portion of that document. So I'm just going to go through the rest of it, and then if you guys have questions or want to refer back to that more text-based document, we can go through that as well. The core values that were determined by the group were transparency, respect, stewardship, integrity, accountability, and innovation. I think all of those are very laudable goals for a government organization. And our strategic goals, so that kind of informs the strategic goals. Those are the words we live by, and then these are the goals to how to get to where we want to be. So based on the conversations that the citizens and the participants had with the consultant, I see you looking at that word, Chairman, the first strategic goal that came out of this was update and retain a dynamic, comprehensive plan that implements smart growth strategies to guide further development. So what I'm reading there is you might not need to throw it away and start over, but it's looking for something dynamic, something usable, and you know, whatever state it's in right now, if it isn't that 1995 printer paper bound booklet out there that some people might think it is when you see one scanned page of a comp plan, it may be very modern and dynamic now, but we might just need to talk about how to get that document.
I just have a quick comment. I don't want to stray from your presentation, but, and again, while all these things are laudable, you know,
sure.
Goals, I give you one point which I brought up before dealing with the comp plan. There's so many cross purposes. okay? And by that, I mean this. Our comp plan currently says the county's policy is direct growth to the central core part of the county, okay? As long as I've been here, the board has said we want to direct growth to infill, and we want to send it to the cities who have the facilities and the infrastructure to deal with. Those two are in direct conflict, okay? Then, if you send it to the city of Crystal River, who now, under the new flood map, is under the FEMA floodplain, and if they got hit by a hurricane, I doubt FEMA would let them rebuild. So our comp plan is saying do this, we do that, and in the meantime, you have the other things that, well, even if we wanted to do that, is a wise thing to do. So I guess what I'm saying, and I guess you all know this, but all these are going to come, the resiliency thing builds into it. So at one point in time, you have to go back and look at things like resiliency to determine what should be in the comp plan, rather than just saying, hey, we think we need to do this. That's why I ask so many questions about the comprehensive plan, because everybody says, well, we need to update it, we need to change it, but nobody gets specific on how, where, and what. We've had workshops on changing the comp plan and the land development code, and we come in here and I go, what do you want to do? And everybody goes, well, I don't know, what do you want to do? You know, so that's all. I know this is just the framework, but when it gets into the specifics, that's where it's going to get very, very challenging, you know, because then, of course, you have to have everybody on board for, and I mean everybody as far as the cities and everything else. So,
Yes,
anyway,
yes,
sorry,
and-
but I
and
just wanted to plug that in.
Just if I could respond to that particular topic, I think that there is there's some room for us to have community discussions about that, what particularly, we could even do a comprehensive plan specific workshop in the strategic planning, as we call it, the roadshow. There is going to be a lot of exposure of this plan if you guys are to approve it today, because this is something we want to make sure the community feels bought into. New challenges, new voices, people who said things that maybe would be really helpful but weren't able to get into those rooms with us at those times. Those are the people who will be going to these events and finding out more. And I think that's where we'll kind of get a better idea of what kind of ideas they have for comprehensive planning. The citizen-driven portion, we said again, it doesn't end at that workshop. We're going to want to get that citizen input consistently as we go through this process. The specifics, however, of these strategic goals, if you look at, were you provided with the example of a strategic plan booklet that Mr. Oliver had for Leon County? Leon County. They have a really lovely book. If I were to have created a copy of that, which I really did try to do, but it's been a very busy week, their book would have had a lot of Latin text in there for the actual how do we get to these strategic goals, because the difference between the way they do their planning, that's more the traditional way that Bob said he was a little taken aback by when we took it the citizen way. They traditionally did an internal review, an internal analysis, they picked internal goals and then they fleshed them out. Taking this approach and allowing the citizens to pick the categories in which we should be focusing our strategic planning goals is helpful in that it's their document. And then staff actually will use this, and I'll get into this in more in depth at the end here, as a document that they can use to create their budget line items. So technically, we should be using this to figure out our budgets, and then using our strategic goals to figure out if we have something that's not in our budgets, is it even worth trying to figure out how to get it there? We have the partnerships, obviously growing the local economy. We talked a little bit about that before. And you can go ahead and skip to the next one. No, you're good. We have a couple more strategic goals. I don't want you guys to think you're going to go through 10 things of strategic goals. There's not very many more. The others that came up were prioritize the protection and improvement of environmental assets. So that just keeps coming back. And having worked in tourism, I know that that's just going to be a consistent concern of people in Citrus County on all sides of any of the development arguments, any of the nature preservation arguments. People just, in Citrus County, our environmental assets are our world. So that is not surprising to see. And due to that, we want to cultivate an environment that encourages entrepreneurial spirit, economic development, while ensuring all citizens are connected to resources that provide a path to prosperity. So we want a beautiful place to live, work, and play. I think we use that all the time in Citrus County. If you divest that down just a little bit more, that's what you've got. Invest in infrastructure sufficient to support protected growth with priority given to correcting current infrastructure deficits, and to develop and establish a comprehensive system of care for mental and physical health that will address the growing need for services by all citizens.
Chair?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Veronica, should that be projected growth?
It said protected growth in his document, so I'll have to double
Did it?
check.
Okay.
I thought protected in that, acknowledging our protected lands, making sure that it's measured. I think
That's why
measured
I
would be
was,
a better word for that.
that's why I wasn't being
I can
picky. I
clarify.
was actually wondering, because those are two viable options
Yes,
there.
I read it as measured based on my conversations with him, but
Okay.
I could clarify that.
Okay.
And we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Broadening the county's tax base goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of this presentation, and then providing fiscal and environmental stewardship and facilitating the growth of healthcare, medical, and public safety workforce. So those were just the strategic goals that were created from that process. He took what they said, he synthesized it, he went with his assistant, Charles. They did tons of research into Citrus County, read up on all of the many documents we gave them as backup, which was the LDC, all of the community redevelopment areas for the cities, anything that we had that had any element of this process already done, we tried to compile and give to him so he had a good overview of the area when going through to do the final report. And the follow-ups that he recommended were what I'm doing to you right now, which I guess you can call formal. Should have worn a tie, right? Opportunities for public comment and citizen input. That's what Commissioner Davis was speaking about earlier when our participants came up to speak. This is something that the citizens I ideally would love to see the citizens know it's happening and know that it happened, it's still happening, right? So I was part of Citrus 2030's 2019 visioning event. That went wonderfully. It was off of the heels of a 2 decades long wonderful program that did so much for our community. And then October 19, COVID hit right afterwards, right as we were getting our steam. And a lot of people have asked me for the last few years, I really haven't heard anything from Citrus 2030. I really haven't heard anything from Citrus 2030. So having them be a part of this with us is great. It'll help me on both sides when they ask what's Citrus County doing and what Citrus 2030 doing. Luckily, everyone who's doing strategic planning is kind of on the same page now. The education system is currently working through something like this right now. So it's a really great time, and I'd like to make sure that if we're going to adopt something like this, that the public is fully on board. And then we'll use this as a guide for future budget processes. So this is what his recommendation is for actually using the document. So you saw the document in front of you. When it's not made pretty, it's just a small Word document with definitions and next steps. And these next steps would be that we, the staff, would develop SMART objectives supporting each goal. The way that I plan to do that is take my current budget and try to allocate it to which goal it fits under. That's just my personal thing, but that's something we're going to be working on, not for this fiscal year. You guys know we're deep into the budgetary process for this fiscal year. When I talked to Mr. Lee about that, he agreed that the timeline to get this fiscal year running on a strategic planning process type of thing is not feasible. So this gives us plenty of time for the staff and the citizens and everyone to work on really getting this implemented well the first time and then making improvements as we go forward, since we'll have a pretty good draft to start. A section can be added to the new system potentially. This is something that just came up as an opportunity with Civic Clerk. With Civic Clerk, could potentially put in an agenda item line. So when you guys have your agenda items in front of you, you could put which goal your item supports. So you can kind of give yourself a letter of recommendation for your agenda item by saying it correlates directly to, let's say the environmental stewardship and you're working on a water project, perfect sense. If you're trying to figure out how to bring in maybe a DuPont chemical factory, look at the strategic plan, try to put that in the budget, it might not work as well. And then that's maybe where you say, this might not be the best fit for this community, right? So it's a bumper for all the processes, and you can just come back and if you have a question, it should lead you. And that would be the ideal use of a strategic planning document. The worst strategic planning document can be also the best one, but if you put it away and you don't use it, then it's functionally worthless, and I do not want to have wasted our citizens' time with this process. So if it's not to your liking currently, I think we can workshop it some more. It's just, I think, very important that we use this to guide us in the future if that's the way that we want to take things forward. The objectives could be implemented into the employee evaluation process. They could have the agenda item added in. Administrators in the future could do a quarterly report with a year-to-date status. That was the recommendation of the FIOG. that is not a hard or fast, it is just a recommendation. It could be a annual report with, annual status comparatively year over year. It could be something, but I do think having some kind of, like, bringing it back to the presence of mind throughout the year as new boards form and as new issues come up, just to keep those thoughts on the forefront. The workshops and the retreats might be a great opportunity for that as well. And the review process, the EAR process for the comp plan, that's when he's suggesting that we utilize it in that, the review process. It's state mandated to go through, which it has been going through. So when we are set to make more changes to the comp plan, we're hoping to make those changes fall in line with the strategic plan if we use his recommendations. Do I have another slide? Yeah, all right. So I kind of went over this already with you, but we've got the draft plan to the BOCC for public input and approval. That's right now. So if anyone here in the audience, when they call for public input, wants to speak on this topic, that'll be the option. We didn't want to do another public input session that was not an agenda item approval or an agenda item disapproval. We just wanted to that's the last opportunity for citizens here, because at this point, this part of the process is kind of complete. If you approve what you have in front of you today, then there will be a lot more opportunities for citizen input from that point based off of this diving board. So we're not trying to keep the citizens out by having, just the one public input today. But there were a lot of opportunities on this first phase, and then once this, if it is approved, goes through, then phase 2 would begin in June 22, which is staff begins to develop strategic goals for fiscal year 23-24. You guys will discuss these strategic goals, well, some of you guys will be discussing this at the planning retreat in January of 2023, depending on how we end up scheduling that elected summit. We may have some of these topics up there. I think it would be a wonderful idea if this was adopted to take this and ask the other elected boards and bodies to bring any other guiding documents they have just for review. I'm just throwing that out there as the option. I think we definitely should know what others have on their paperwork as well. So, I guarantee Ms. Vick has something, and the sheriff has something, and it'd be wonderful is once we create something that we can make sure everything's cohesive. And that's the beauty of a living document, is that makes it much easier to do. The staff would submit budget requests tied to strategic goals. So during the budget process, there'd be one more line, and that line would be which strategic goal does this answer to. And then fiscal year 23-24 begins October 1, at which time things would start rolling, priorities in departments and divisions would be happening, and if this process had gone well, it would be right in line with the strategic plan. And in 25-27, that's when the first review process would begin, and that would be getting a new report, updated report after 5 years. That's it.
Excellent presentation, as always.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Considering you said you didn't feel well, you wouldn't be able to tell. You did a great
Thank you.
job.
Thank you very much.
Board, any comments, questions?
I was just-
Excuse me, so you're actually looking for an action of having this adopted today? That's what you're,
Correct.
The
The
draft.
document that you have attached is, it's no longer a draft, it's a final document. That's the final deliverable from the FSU FIOG, so we can choose to adopt it, implement it, and begin working on it, or you can choose not to do that.
adopted at this stage, because what you just said is that after we hear from the public, then it might want to be modified, tweaked, and whatever. So what we have at this stage to be adopted.
Yes.
Okay,
The
great.
process.
Great, okay.
And the
thank you.
results of the first phase.
Thank you. Commissioner Kennard.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to make the comment that you made in advance, was that, Veronica, you continue to impress.
Thank you.
You started off with, I'm not feeling well today, I'm not, this, and you hit it out of the park. Just an absolutely fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
I was happy to be part of it, the little bit that I could be there. And you're right, there was a tremendous cross-section of our community that was there and actively engaged in different discussions as we went through the process. It was very informative, and I think very much a worthwhile process.
Thank you for
I'm going
attending.
to support it for sure.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes, Veronica, I mean, the more I work with you, the more, I've told you in private how much I think of your skill set. You did a fantastic job wrangling this. And would you like me to give your email address publicly to ask
I
those.
I think it's on the slide.
Is it on the slide?
So feel free to
Those-
call, email.
Those that, it is PIO@citrusbocc.com. Anyway, we are looking for groups such as Rotaries, whatnot, any sort of associations that are looking for public
speaker
speaking
circuit.
opportunities, the speaker circuit. Veronica and I are certainly, and one of the 40 will, if one of the 40 is not a member of that group, we would rope one of the 40 in to go with us. It'd be 3 of us doing it, and I will step aside to encourage my colleagues to take my place and also own this process. So if y'all are interested in going out with Veronica and one of the 40, I would heartily encourage that.
Yeah,
So-
if you don't mind for a moment,
Yep.
as I get invitations from groups, I think maybe your personal backgrounds might play better to some of those groups. So if
Absolutely.
you don't mind me keeping you guys as my speaker circuit and, to talk about strategic plan or whatever that would be, I think that would be helpful, to whatever degree you guys would be willing to do that.
But I think this is a long way to the final document. If not the final document, we won't know till we workshop it with other citizens that were not involved in
This
to
is
it
the
in this
framework.
stage.
Yes, we've created a framework here, and that's what's different from what you would get to see from a consultant who was hired to do strategic plan from A to B, is they would give you this, and then they would break down that second level of information, but because they don't have that staff input at this point on that topic, and it wasn't part of the agreement with the FAOG, that is going to be up to staff and up to us to evaluate how the strategic plan lends itself to what we do.
And one final comment, I'll say this again, I reported on this before up here. I was actually pretty stunned that Dr. Lee made a big deal about saying that no other entity that he's worked with has put this in the citizens' hands, but isn't that kind of the point?
I think it's
We're
a
supposed to
good
be
way to do
developing
it.
the county for the folks who live here, so I'm very proud to say that even though this is my background, I took a very, very back seat and didn't say much during this process, so it's a little tough for me.
I think the approach that we've taken here indicates the difference that the Citrus County community might have to other communities who do these kinds of things. Citizen input is and should be a really major component of everything we do here. So it just fits right in.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
It's sad to hear other communities might not have that fit so well in, but it's the reason we're all here, right?
So thank you again, Veronica.
Thank
I'm
you.
done. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Slaybach, anything?
No, thank you.
No?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So at this time, I guess we'd be looking for a motion to approve the final draft of the framework of the strategic planning document.
Motion to approve G3.
Second.
Okay, so Commissioner Davis makes the motion, second by Commissioner Slaybach. Is there any public comment? Any further board discussion? Please come up.
Mike?
Commissioners, Michael Serwinski, professional address 2716 South Lecanto Highway, Lecanto, Florida. I want to first thank the commissioners, and especially Commissioner Davis, for inviting me to participate in this. Many of you know me as the environmental guy, or the tortoise guy, but actually I've worked on over 200 comprehensive plans in the state of Florida early in my career with folks like Chuck Dixon, Avis Craig, Gary Cool, Ken Cheek, as well as others when we were at a former firm, Henniger and Ray, and had worked probably on the comp plan here at Citrus County, the original. And I've worked on EARS, so I've also participated in the Citrus 2020. So I really appreciate the opportunity to join in here, and I have a few comments and a few keywords to drop in on you, because I think Dr. Lee did a fantastic job. You had some questions about outdated comprehensive plan, and I think he was kind in that manner. One of the consistent themes among many that was there was growth should pay for itself. And a lot of the citizenry felt that when you see infrastructure up there, they felt that the county was lacking traffic concurrency, that growth is not paying for itself, and that the taxpayer is going to be, that'll be put on the backs of the taxpayers. This workshop happened at a time when 1,000 home development got approved, and there were concerns. So it was sort of, I guess, a reading of the political climate at the time. And so traffic concurrency, when you see infrastructure up there, that was one of the main topics, traffic concurrency. We no longer have it. We need it back again. So the outdated comprehensive plan, that word outdated, I think a lot of folks were talking about from the outside, enforce the comp plan, stick to the comp plan, not outdated, because we have been working on wetland setbacks and other issues. It's enforcing it. Now, I'm a little bit more on the inside. I go to the PDC meetings, and just this last one, they denied an application for a gas station outside of Floral City, outside of the service area. It'll come before you. But I think the PDC made the right decision there. Our comp plan says, no, you're outside of the service area. Maybe you can provide a service that you're showing that there's a need out there, but it doesn't meet the comp plan. So many times it is enforced. I think a lot of citizenry doesn't see that, or they see some exceptions being given to where growth is not paying for itself.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this?
Feel free to send me.
Anyone else speak to the motion? Third and final time. Okay, we're closing the discussion on the motion to approve the final draft of the strategic plan framework. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much for the opportunity to work on this project. It's been
Thank
a lot
you.
of fun.
Okay. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I don't know how many people know this, but when you go to county commissioner training with the Florida Association of Counties, the first thing the lawyer tells you as a county commissioner, your one job that you're sworn to do is to uphold the county comprehensive plan, period. Imagine that, that's it. So it's not about all the other things people say it's about upholding the county comprehensive plan, so. Okay, so let's see, let's move along to, we've finished with the public hearings. We have no announcements for boards, so we'll go to committee reports from commissioners. Commissioner Slabaugh, you have anything?
Nothing.
Okay, Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, TDC, we actually did that really cool thing that I talked about 2 weeks ago where we approved the augmented reality experience for swimming with the manatees. So that ought to be pretty cool to see come to fruition. And I'm going to let Commissioner Kennard handle the Withlacoochee Regional Water Supply Authority because I managed to not bring my notes from that board meeting down here, so.
Anything else,
There were,
Commissioner
actually.
Davis?
No, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Kennard.
Thank
Committee
you.
reports.
I would love to. Well, we reviewed the financials at our meeting, and the Water Authority is absolutely flush with cash. They have increased their total net position from 2.1 million last year to 2.25 million this year. For those that are watching at home or those who may not necessarily be aware, each of the 4 counties that belong to the Water Authority pay a per capita fee. I believe it's 19 cents per resident in their county. They pay that assessment to the Water Authority. The total assessments paid by all 4 entities to the Water Authority for 21 was $156,782. The golden goose to the Water Authority is the Charles A. Black well field that we've paid the majority of that money back to them, but still don't own it. And we now pay them per 1,000 gallons that we pump out of there for our utility system to Citrus County Utilities. So Citrus County paid the Water Authority in 21. Remember, $156 in administrative fees was paid by all 4 entities. Citrus County alone paid an additional $210,000 for the water that we pumped out of our own well field to the water authorities. The remaining 3 counties paid absolutely zero for their water to the Water Authority. And So that gave the Water Authority total operating revenue of $457,986. They've got lots of money to do that $35,000 grant that we've got to match of our own money to get back. So glad to bring you up to speed on that.
You're welcome.
And we appreciate the detached manner in which you presented it. So. Okay, well, that's a good segue. Back to Commissioner Kennard. Do you have anything under your area tonight to talk about?
The only thing that that I wanted to mention, I'll be bringing it forward in the next our next agenda, is that I received an email. I don't know if we all got the same email from an individual who is very upset with the condition of the trails out in the forest, that they're not being maintained, and that some of them are actually posing a danger to horseback riding out there because of the no maintenance of them, or very low maintenance of them. And Randy, I believe, has spoken with the individual. I think they're down in Brooksville, that actually oversees the maintenance of them. And this individual seemed to, I guess, agree with the position of the email I received, that the feds are the forestry is just not taking care of those trails. They're not funding the equipment upgrades. They're not funding the personnel to take care of them, and actually encouraged us to take a position on this, to please, while it's not our job to maintain them, this is a big part of Citrus County, and it's enjoyed by many people in the outdoors, and to encourage them to please address the shortcomings in maintenance of the trails out in the forest. So something a little bit different, and I do believe that I could point to something in the strategic plan that would help us achieve it. So that's coming next time.
Very good. Commissioner Davis, anything else?
Yes, sir. I thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Kennard, because that's a point of, I too got those emails, and I am very, concerned about that same area, and especially, of course, horseback riding is near and dear to my heart. If you'd like to bring something forward, I would certainly support coming up with a resolution or whatnot to try to push some progress in that area. Along those same lines, I believe I had a lot of back and forth emails with resident Nancy Huff, and I believe, according to my email, it looks like y'all were on copy. If nobody is, I don't know how many of you are aware of Dark Skies initiative, but essentially when you have outdoor lighting at night, it has a dramatic effect on the environment. It has bird migrations, insects, everything else. But if you enjoy night skies and be able to see the Milky Way and bright stars and whatnot, light pollution is a very big deal. There are ways that you can mitigate it through shielding, through LEDs, through various things. There are more advanced lighting systems that help with that. I would say, again, back to the strategic plan, if nature is our jam, which it certainly is, then going towards having dark sky friendly lighting systems at the new big box development in Lecanto as part of what we require, new developments, I would really like to see that happen, and especially exhort the Suncoast Authority to, whenever they do lighting, to really take notice of dark skies. And my last item is a giant shout out to our Citrus County Library System Director, Eric Head, who just won the Florida Library Association Director of the Year. So congratulations to Mr. Head on that. Very well-deserved honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Slabaugh, anything else?
No, sir.
No, sir. All right. Okay, let's go to,
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I wanted to mention one last thing before we recessed for our
Well, I
501.
wasn't done.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's all right. Go ahead.
There's been a lot of talk about Betts Farm, and as everybody's aware, has been paying attention, we've entered into an agreement, or somebody's going through their due diligence period now for the next 90 days, whatever it was. Anyway, with all the public discussion about Betts Farm, I had a good friend of mine, Mr. Frank Allen, stopped by and said that he found something in his garage that he thought that the commissioners might like to have. Before Betts Farm was Betts Farm, before it was owned by Mr. Tamposi, it was Dumas Dairy. And Dumas Dairy made ice cream out there. And their ice cream was packaged in these paper packages like that. Well, he found a whole box full of these paper packages from the Dumas Dairy that is now Betts Farm, and who knows what it'll be after that. But anyway, he brought those in to me and asked that I mention it and give them to anybody who wanted them.
I would think the museum would be interested in something
Yeah.
like that, yes.
And I assume Jack Dumas would be as well.
All right, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Mr. Oliver, can you tell us where we're at with the headhunter issue? Are we on our timeline? Do you think we're going to
Yeah,
make it?
he should, my understanding is, I think that they've scheduled those interviews for the Monday of the next board meeting, I believe.
I haven't heard a thing from anybody.
Okay, let me check on that, because I thought that was scheduled.
Okay.
I will check.
Has anybody heard from him?
No.
Nobody? So none of us have heard from him, so.
Okay.
So if we could follow up on that. And again, so I just want to make sure the schedule doesn't slip. I know it wasn't something that had to happen right away, but we want to keep on
Yeah,
schedule.
because I had a conversation about 10 days, 2 weeks ago, and I thought that they were being scheduled.
Did,
So I'll check.
have we entered into the agreement?
Yes.
Has it been, the purchase order's been issued and all that? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, good. That's all I had. Attorney Lynn, do you have anything for us?
No, sir.
Don't act surprised. I mean, you're on your agenda here. I have to ask you.
I was looking for our lighting standards because I know that we have them in the LDC.
Yes, I thought we did too.
We
So,
do. I
yes.
just,
Yeah,
Yes.
we don't allow Toledo.
Yep. Okay, at this time, is there any final open to the public? Anyone wish to address the board? Third and final time. Okay, we're going to close last section of open to the public. Just so you all know, we will be back here. There's a little discrepancy. It says 5:01. This will be a 5:05 public hearing. So we will meet back here at 5:05 when we recess this meeting to conduct that segment of the agenda. And I just want to announce upcoming meetings. We'll have a regular meeting Tuesday, June 14th at 1. Monday, now keep in mind, this is Monday, June 27th at 1. And a regular meeting on Tuesday, July 12th at 1 o'clock. And various other workshops that you can find listed on the agenda. So if there's no other business to conduct at this time, we'll be in recess until 5:05. Hey, we are back. We are back. And it's 5:05. We're ready to move on with the hearing of OA 22-01. Madam Attorney, you want to kick us off with this?
yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. At the conclusion of this hearing, you're going to be requested to consider an ordinance of Citrus County, Florida, a political subdivision of the state of Florida, amending ordinance number 2012-06, the Citrus County Land Development Code, as it's been amended, by amending Section 2300 building setback requirements and height requirements for all land use districts, to add standards for waterfront setbacks, amending Section 3102 special requirements for all accessory uses, deleting Section 3501, surface water protection standards, and amending Section 3520. Floodplain protection standards of the LDC to relocate and/or modify required waterfront setback criteria, amending Section 6410 lot development review and Section 6420 general requirements, providing for severability, providing for conflicts of law, providing for codification, providing for modifications that may arise from consideration at public hearings, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. I believe Mr. Sherman is here to make the staff presentation.
Okay, so we'll have a staff presentation, and that's because this is staff, there's no applicant. We'll do that, then we'll have the public hearing, and then we'll deal with the ordinance, correct?
Correct. Well, the county is the applicant.
Right, okay. Mr. Chairman?
Is your mic on?
Is your mic on?
I think it is now.
There
Yes,
you
sir,
go.
thank you. So, at the direction of the county commission, as you know, the staff has been looking at our waterfront setbacks and residential stormwater management requirements to see if we could come to something that would get us, would implement the comprehensive plan as well as get us out of so many variance requests that we were having from applicants. So this is the first change to the code in section 2300, and this is the building setback requirements and height requirements for all land use districts. And this one says, I'm going to read it for the record, all structures shall be a minimum of 35 feet from either the more landward of the mean high water line or ordinary high water line or the jurisdictional wetland line, except as follows. Proposed structures for lots with seawalls or riprap lacking a natural vegetative buffer that are in natural grade, such as slabs or decks, without railings or similar construction, shall be set back a minimum of 15 feet from the ordinary high water line, mean high water line, or jurisdictional wetland line. For purposes of this section, a natural grade shall include those deck structures no more than 12 inches above grade with half-inch spacing. And that continues a practice that we've had before with our docks and things. And this is the other one where what we think is important with this one here, it talks about we can reach compatibility with the adjacent lots. So what we've done is added a section that allows structures to utilize the greater of an average setback of the 6 closest similar uses on either side of the proposed site. Originally, when this was before the planning board a number of years ago, we had chosen 4 average setback, the 4 closest similar uses on each side, and we've added 2 more to make it a little more compatible. The second one is also important because what this does is it also averages the furthest setback for immediately abutting improved structures on either side of this proposed site. So if you've got properties on either side that have a setback of 35 feet, then your setback's going to also be 35 feet, or if it's 25 feet, it'll be 25 feet. And the structures have to be permitted, so they can't be non-permitted structures where we would start trying to figure out the average setback. And the minimum setback cannot be less than 15 feet from the ordinary high water line, mean high water line, or jurisdictional line as well. So what we've done is with those, we've gone into 6410, the lot development review, and what this does is does a development review for stormwater management for residential lots, and in this section here we added for the entire development site. So we'll be doing, prior to the issuance of a construction permit, a review of the stormwater management system for the entire site will be conducted for the following. Any new structure on a waterfront lot. What this does is it takes the consideration, the pre and post development for the entire lot and not just the improvement. In this section 6420 in general requirements, the structure in red is taken out, and we've added that the grading and drainage plan will be prepared by a professional engineer or architect licensed in the state of Florida. And the stormwater requirement is for them to store the first 1/2 inch of rainfall from the developed area, or if discharged into an outstanding Florida, it'll be the first 3/4 of an inch, or an equivalent best management practice. We wanted to allow the best management practice in here because it gives the engineer or designers some leeway to design it specific to that site. It's not like hard and fast. You have to do A, B, or C to achieve that stormwater treatment.
Chair?
Yes.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
First 1/2 inch or first 3/4 inch, in what time period? Is that a daily? Should that have a time modifier?
It's normally, I would
1/2 inch
imagine,
an hour?
24 hours.
Or, yeah, okay.
24 hours. Then for further protection, we're going to require them to record an affidavit documenting the BMP with the clerk of the courts. We're also going to require an inspection every 5 years. The reason to do that, we want to make sure that the stormwater management system is maintained and water quality protections are still provided to our rivers and lakes and creeks. We've added one other one. This is not actually relating to stormwater management or residential setbacks, but for further consistency, we added an addition to 3102B, special requirements for accessory uses. So as y'all remember, we had talked a few months ago about accessory dwelling units in an attempt to help provide some more housing. And just for consistency, we added accessory dwelling units to the second sentence, where it says now, accessory structure shall not be occupied as a residence, with the exception of a guest cottage. And we added accessory dwelling units / garage apartments as outlined herein. We used accessory dwelling units, other parts of the land development code, so this maintained further consistency in our code. So these are some of the, we got some pictures of the area where we had issues where people were trying to get some setback variances, and this shows some typical residential waterfronts where we're working for consistency with these.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Well, can you go back to that? Well, that one as well. You've got two of them in a row there. The pool enclosure, it says that it's blocking a view, but and this does not meet the waterfront setbacks. It doesn't meet the waterfront setbacks because of the pool screen?
Because of the pool itself, I believe, this would be under the existing code.
Okay. But would that pool be able to be, well, I guess we don't know if that pool would be able to be constructed, given the new code, because we don't know the measurements of the neighboring houses here, right?
That's right.
Okay. My concern is, I understand that, that structures, whether it's a deck or a pool that would be built utilizing this new calculation method of the 6 homes, that they would be prohibited from adding a screen to it because it would block the view.
That's right, and I imagine they then would need to, if they wanted to change that, they would have to get a variance for that pool enclosure.
We have one saying that and one shaking their head no, so let's get.
Okay, hang on.
Sorry.
Jump in.
That's all right. There's the 15-foot for a slab or a deck.
Okay.
But if you want a pool and you can meet the average of the area and you're no closer than on either side, absolutely you can put the screen on. The planning board didn't want it to just be a pool with the 15-foot default regardless of the area. That's what you're seeing with the slab and the deck that he's talking about, because we expect most people that have pools on the water are probably going to want screens, and they absolutely can. If they're meeting the average of the six closest, and they're no closer than either side, absolutely, it's a structure, whatever they're going to build, a house, a pool, whatever it is.
Okay. And you may have just answered as well, that I was at a PDC meeting where a gentleman had a deck on the back of his house and was wanting to screen it in. Provided that he meets these other requirements, he's going to be able to screen it in?
Absolutely. If he can do the 6 average closest and he's no closer than the ones right on either side, then yeah, that's what's proposed.
Okay.
Thank you, Joanna.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
So here's the stormwater summary. The rule's not going to apply in the V, A zone, or floodway that are not on waterfronts. It will apply to all waterfront lots in the county, regardless of the location. It's got to be an engineered stormwater plan when the new structure is built. The design will be from a professional engineer architect. They can still use a swale and berm. We're going to allow best management practices, and if that's the one they choose, that would be acceptable. And it's going to allow other methods of treatment which are equal to the berm and swale for stormwater treatment. We're going to require an affidavit with the court for further protection. They're going to recertify that every 5 years. This is a good thing. It's going to allow them to get a discount on their stormwater MSBU assessment. And the rule changing is not going to affect our CRS score or flood insurance rates, which is really important as well.
Can I ask real quick, so this is kind of a carrot and stick thing, because what I'm concerned with is we talked about the affidavit and the inspections. Well, what if they don't comply?
It goes through code enforcement, and the only power that the code enforcement officer has would be to impose a fine on the property owner, which if it's homesteaded, you're not going to be able to execute on it practically well at all if it's homesteaded until they go to sell the property or dispose of it.
So the key to enforcement would be hoping that the 30% discount would be beneficial to them to do this, to keep it up. Because really, I don't see us going in and telling people that they have to tear down their structure or taking their, again, we've gone through this before with code enforcement and trying to enforce these kind of things in the past. So it's just, these are great ideas, but if they're unenforceable, we have to be realistic about that. So it's a question of, are they enforceable or are they not? So.
Realistically, you want to achieve voluntary compliance because the enforcement mechanisms are limited if it's homesteaded property significantly.
Okay, thank you.
And that is it. We can entertain any questions that the board may have or the general public.
Okay, board, do you have any questions? You want to hear from the public first and discuss it? Any questions to staff?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. This was posed to me that that this does not apply to new developments. New developments would still be at 50 feet. Is that correct?
No.
No? Okay. So this would apply across the board, whether it's new development, lot reconfigurations, existing development. I didn't-
And can also, while you're addressing that, can you address, I understand the concept of the 6 averages, whatever, what if there is no other adjoining properties? Then what's
It's
the?
not adjoining, it's 6 closest, but yeah, you'll see in there's a hand, we looked at all the variances the last couple years, and there was one person that was out in a point with nobody around him for miles. He wouldn't work for that. It's very unusual.
So what would apply in that case?
In that case, 35 or 50.
35 or 50,
Yeah.
okay.
You're talking about, there's a comp plan policy that says that new subdivided parcels must meet 50 feet. Now, we are going to bring that back before you, and you can consider whether you want that, but that's new subdivided parcels. With our density in the coast, that's really not what we see. We don't see subdividing out there. We see some reconfigurations and things, but not new subdivided. But that's a comp plan policy that we are going to have to bring back to you if this passes tonight.
Okay, and so if this passes, that would come back to us, and then we can decide if we want to apply these standards to that.
Correct.
Okay. One last question. I know you've had some discussion about this already, but in there it says the measurement goes from a seawall to seawall or riprap. There was another time in my life we lived on a lake that didn't have either one. Over on the east side of the county. People that are building or wanting to do stuff on one of those lots, they don't have a seawall or riprap to measure from.
Right. The seawall and the riprap are kind of a shortcut if they don't have a mean high water line or an average high water line with what you're describing.
Okay.
If they have that, they have to provide that line.
Okay.
But if they have the riprap, we go to the inside where it comes. If they have the concrete seawall, sure, it's the outside, and you don't need to find a high water line then.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, then we'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak in favor or opposed to this ordinance? Please come up, give us your name, we'll give you 3 minutes to tell us what's on your mind. Also, if you would, before, during, or after, fill out a green card and give it to the clerk so that she has that information.
Good evening. My name is Robert Laundre, and I'm here with my wife, Neilida. We just purchased a lot on Seneca Avenue or Seneca Point in Crystal River, and we were under, we saw the rest of the houses being built, and we said, okay, yeah, we can live with that. We can build this size house. We designed a house based on a 35-foot setback. When we went to permit, we found out it was a little unclear on the line where our house fell, but our actual setback ended up being 50 feet from the water. Well, our lot's only 100 feet deep, and we have a 25-foot setback from the front yard. That left us with a 25 by approximate 40-foot building envelope. Obviously, it's not feasible to build a home in this configuration on that lot. So we do have a variance in front of the PDCC. We've continued it based on this. We're really, we just wanted to be able to enjoy the lot, and we've always dreamed of being here, but having these constraints left us with having to adhere to something that nobody else on the street has had, around us deals with. So we're in for this new ordinance. So that's pretty much it. Do you have anything to say?
No, I'm just very excited about for the changes that have been presented to you, and we would love to see that being approved.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We'll take all the public input, and then we'll try to answer your questions, but something to be thinking about on that particular issue. My question would be, that would fall under the 6, the proposal that you're talking about with the 6 averages on the side, right? Okay. Yes, next speaker.
Hi, my name is Kim Dinkins. I'm the Senior Conservation Associate with Save the Manatee Club, and I'm on the board of directors for the Florida Springs Council. I believe you received letters from both the Florida Springs Council and Save the Manatee Club as of today. I wanted to just let you know that we are supportive of the new stormwater rules, but we would like to urge you to keep Section 3501, which deals with natural buffers against springs and water bodies. That's a common sense provision in your land development code, and although it's very difficult to enforce, I recognize that sometimes you have these new provisions before you, the affidavits and the design plans, where you can, and the every 5-year follow-up, where you can enforce that and start to be seeing some changes in the positive direction in the community. So I just wanted to bring those to your attention and urge you to keep that section of your code.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comment on this ordinance, either in favor or opposed?
Hi. Maxine Connor, Homosassa, twice in one day. I would like to echo the previous speaker's comments. I also am on the board of the Florida Springs Council as a volunteer board member. And the reasoning behind that request to reinstate the vegetative buffer and also to reinstate the second section of that, it was C3. C3, if you put that back in, they can't trim, they can trim the buffer, but they can't remove it or take part of it out. And so that's part of the reason why we were hoping that could be left in there or put back as in there. But the reasoning behind it is, according to Florida Department of Environmental Protection, the springs of the Homosassa River, Chassahowiska River, and Crystal River in Kings Bay are impaired by excessive nutrient pollution. So for each of these spring sheds, urban turf fertilizer is one of the 2 largest sources of pollution, leading to the water quality impairments. So removing the native vegetation or Florida-friendly landscaping buffer requirements will result in an increase in the amount of turf grass near springs, spring runs, and sinkholes, and a corresponding increase in nutrient pollution from urban fertilizer entering Citrus County spring sheds. So additionally, it just, at the same time as this is happening here, the county has accepted millions of dollars in taxpayer funding to improve the water quality by upgrading or connecting septic tanks. But these two items are just something simple, something common sense, something within the board's control, and it would greatly protect the water quality. So that is the reasoning behind it, and I hope that you can consider to put those two items back in. And I thank you very much for allowing us to comment.
Thank you. Thank you for putting a long day in with us tonight.
Thank you for putting in a long day.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak either in favor or opposed to this ordinance?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Christina Ryman. I am a Florida native, and my husband and I are residents in Homosassa, where we own a home on the river in the River Haven community. I am here this evening to ask that you approve the proposed waterfront setback amendments. Our home in Homosassa sits on a very unique piece of property, which is surrounded on 3 sides by water overlooking Price Creek and the preserve. Over the last year and a half, we tried receiving a variance to build a small pool in our backyard. Due to the shape of our lot and the proximity to water on 3 sides, it is impossible to build a pool with the current setbacks. The variance we applied for was 27 feet to give us a small area to work with. That variance was denied twice, even though we as homeowners went above and beyond current building and environmental regulations to show responsible stewardship of the river and the impacts the pool might have on the surrounding environment. The main reason the PDC board had for denying our request was that their hands were tied and that we needed to make the commissioners change the setbacks, which is why I'm here today. I would also like to note that if there was no home on our property today and we wanted to build a median-sized home on our lot with current setback conditions in place, it would be impossible. So we would not even be able to build a normal-sized home on our own lot due to these extreme setback conditions. Due to the shape of our lot. As a homeowner who pays one of the highest brackets of personal property taxes in our county, which for the record, our homesteaded tax bill for 2021 that we paid was $7,607.51, I believe it is our right as property owners to reasonably use our property as we see fit, as long as we do so responsibly and with minimal impact to our surrounding environment. And that 30% would definitely be a big motivator to keep up with the inspection every 5 years, I will tell you. I believe that the current waterfront setback number is extreme and completely restricts people to reasonably and responsibly utilize their property if they live on the water, especially considering that most inhabited waterfront areas in Florida have significantly less setback restrictions than what we currently have in place in Citrus County. In our case, the plans for our small pool will actually impact the river and surrounding environment less than how our home sits today, which currently has 0 environmental management practices in place due to it being built prior to current codes. The engineered plans we presented included not only extreme environmental protection for the river from impacts from the pool, but also included an entire whole house water runoff management system that would have tied into the pool's engineered system, making our house have 0 impact from an environmental stance. My ask to you is this: please approve the modified setback amendment so that land and homeowners can reasonably and responsibly use their property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else to speak in favor or opposed to this ordinance?
Good evening, Clark Stillwell. I represent multiple people. First thing I want to say is I represented Mrs. Reimer in her variance request. I probably let her present rather than me. In doing these variances over the last 5 to 7 years, they fall into 3 categories: vacant lots, building a new house, accessory use type situations, and then in a few rare instances where a house had been impacted as a result of a hurricane or tropical storm. They needed the variance to rebuild if they're over 50%. The variances that dealt with impacts from tropical storms and hurricanes, very rare, but generally were approved given the circumstances that those homeowners faced by your board. The existing or the vacant lots, very few vacant lots left, but generally you were able to work around that and there was this sort of ad hoc rule, if you really needed the variance, you met the hardship test, try to get to 25 feet and live with that. The real problem has come in, as Ms. Reimer has indicated, with accessory uses, where you have a house and they want a deck, they want a pool, they want a screen room, and the staff report would come and say, hey, you already got a house, you got the reasonable use of your property, you don't meet the variance criteria, denied. And that happened more often than not, even though their neighbors who built pre-code all had pools or screen rooms or whatever. So in this regard, this particular piece of legislation is great in Riverhaven. It's great in a subdivision where you have platted lots and a lot of lots to work off. The average is the 6, and you got seawalls. It is a good piece of legislation in that regard, and it takes probably 75% of the variance cases off the table. It makes them go to just a permitting process, and they didn't have to go through 3 public hearings like Mrs. Reimer and I went through to try and get approval. The other aspect of it is the stormwater standards are great. They retrofit both the improvement and the existing structure. The affidavit puts the buyer on notice, and the certification comes from the engineer, not the homeowner. So the engineer that did that system is going to contact the homeowner, and he's going to say, hey, to keep my license says I have to certify this. If he's denied access, to protect his license, he's just going to pick up the phone or write a letter and tell the county, I can't get on, I can't do certification. Red flag, the county can move forward. So it's very close to what they do with Department of Health and septic tanks in the new systems.
Thank you very much. You're used to having unlimited time, not in this case.
So it's as good as you can get.
Thank you for your input. Your 3 minutes are up. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Clark, you've been gonged.
Yeah, okay. All right. Anyone else to speak in favor or opposed to this ordinance?
Hello again, Commissioners. Michael G. Serwinski, Environmental Consultant, professional address 2716 South Lecanto Highway, Lecanto, Florida. I was very gracious in working with staff on coming up with this. I do have a few points of clarification that Mr. Sherman may clarify. We are talking about reduced setbacks in areas where there's a seawall or riprap and upland turf grass behind. And as the woman had stated, turf grass are an issue. They create a lot of nutrients. They fertilize them. With a stormwater engineered system and proper mowing, we should have what's known as a net environmental benefit as opposed to the current conditions. Even if there isn't a house on there, you've got turf grass that's either being fertilized or cut, and the cuttings go into the canal or the water body. The clarification point is, if we are on, whether it be a river or a non-river or lake system, and we have an existing wetland buffer, those 35 and 50-foot setbacks need to remain in place. In other words, that folks can't get to clear that buffer of, say, cypress trees, wetland flag, and things that provide those nutrient uptake to get to the water body. And that's my point of clarification. In natural systems where we have a wetland natural buffer, those 35 and 50-foot setbacks will still apply. You may not need an engineered stormwater system if you're not on a water body, but you will need, if you're 35-foot, a berm and swale system, not necessarily engineered. And I'm in favor of the ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does staff concur with that statement? When he says this is what it says, are we being told by staff this is what it says?
Yes, that's what it says.
So that's our understanding from the staff perspective.
It doesn't, okay, no, I'm sorry, it doesn't say
See,
that.
we got to get our stories straight here,
no,
folks.
you're
We
right.
have one person saying one thing and somebody else saying another.
It does not say that in here. Where it says it's going to be setback, In E1, right.
Can you address that?
Yes.
Yeah, you can.
I want to make sure that we have accurate information as we move
Yeah,
forward with this.
Mr. Zawinski was addressing encroaching into wetlands. This ordinance does not allow encroachment into wetlands at all. The wetlands JD line is where you take the setback from if you don't have a water, or if the wetlands is closer, that's where you're taking it. And I think he also wanted an additional buffer, vegetative buffer. This doesn't address that, but this addresses a setback to wetland lines. This does not give you the right to go into wetlands.
So we are on the same page now. Okay.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure the people that say they support it know what they're supporting, okay? Yes, please, I'm sorry for the holdup.
That's okay. My name is Preston Lagarde. This is my wife Kayleen. We've recently purchased a lot on Crystal River, and with the current setbacks, I think it leaves us about 13 feet to build, which is probably not going to work at all. So we do wish that you support this. So there's neighbors on either side of us that are 15 feet off the water. So, you know, with the current setbacks, I don't see any way that we're going to be able to build.
We would like to enjoy Crystal River and everything that it has to offer. We've paid taxes for the last 2 years on a plot of land that we obviously cannot build on at this point. So our hope is that you approve this ordinance so we can enjoy it, and you can enjoy
We
some
want
more
to
tax
build a
money.
home to, you know, for our family to spend time at. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Very good, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak either in favor or opposed to this ordinance?
Ellen Moore, and I have a home in Woods and Water at the end of Fort Island Trail. We're private roads, unpaved, shell rock, so on and so forth. And our flooding, if any, wouldn't really need per se a fancy stormwater system or all that jazz, because our flooding is tidal. We don't really have flooding from storms unless it's a tidal surge. So it comes in and goes out. So if we have berms and it's all salt water, holding that salt water longer because of the berms, it makes it worse rather than better. And also, we're 50-foot setbacks. So I have a 95 by 70 lot, which I can't do anything with except build a postage stamp. So, and I've owned the lot for over 20 years. It's next to our house, which is a multi-story stilt house, as you can see, and I'm the youngest one. We'd like to build a one-level stilt house instead of 3. So, but at this point, we can't do anything with it, and I can't even sell it, because I've got about, with the setback from the street and the setback from the water, about 15 feet to build for a footprint. So we're in a situation where we need help. And it's so complicated to get all the engineering and the plan and the footprint and everything money-wise up front, it doesn't make any sense. So you guys, the commissioners, see if you can help us.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else wish to address either being in favor or opposed to this?
My name is Gaston Hall. I'm here representing the Citrus County Building Alliance. She has a letter of authorization for me to speak.
You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. One thing I want to clear up is in the ordinance, we defined structures 2 ways, 12 inches and below and above 12 inches. And we were told the 12 inches and below, anything could be built in that thing, pools, anything could be built in that 12 inches below as long as we didn't top that 12 inches. Screen rooms, we agree, are greater than that, so that wasn't addressed, but we were told under the 12 inches, anything that was below that the structure could be built. That's one item. The Florida Audubon Society sent y'all a letter, and they addressed this as a single fit for all the lots. It is not. If you go to Chapter 18 of Citrus County Building Codes, you will see that there's FEMA codes in there, there's building codes in there, and others. They have multiple designations that cover the lots all the way from the coastline in, and they cover wave action. So all your design criteria and everything, this should be in Chapter 18. This is removing some of the old criteria that's in here that should not even be here because it conflicts with Chapter 18. So one of our things that we're trying to do is get all the building FEMA codes that you use for design in Chapter 18 and leave the LDC for your other stuff. This amendment addresses all that. So we supported the amendment. We think it's good. We think it's a good product. I worked with staff, Randy and Denise both, to get this product finalized into you all, and I think it's a very good product that needs to be approved. It's going to help a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor or opposed to this ordinance?
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Brenda McKenzie, McKenzie Permitting and Consulting. My address is 7232 East Gospel Island Road in Inverness, and I'm here today in favor of this. Kudos to the staff for all the hard work that they put into the research and workshops to get where we're at today. Along with a lot of other things, it was actually common sense, which I thought was really super cool and refreshing. And I probably will lose a lot of money because other than Clark Stillwell, I've probably done the most waterfront variance setback applications where I've seen them denied when it was heartbreaking to see people couldn't do things they want to with their property and still be respectful of the waterfront and the environment. I live on the water, you know, we all want to make sure our waters are kept properly. And the stormwater management and the engineering design, I think, is awesome. It's these older homes that have nothing, and they're just draining right into the waterways. Now, if you go to get an addition or something to your home, and the new homes, it'll be designed for all the water to go away from the water and protect it. I also found that most of the stormwater plans were moving the houses closer to the front yard, which made the designs have to flow the water to the backyard because they were having to go 50 feet away from the water. So I think going a little bit closer gives them more room for the designers and the engineers to design their stormwater plans to have the water flow to the front of the property and away from the waterfront. And I'm here today, you know, kudos to staff and hoping that the commission votes in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to address this ordinance, either in favor or opposed? Anyone else to speak? Third and final time. Okay, we're going to close the public hearing, and I have a couple of questions, and then commissioners, we can talk about it, or you can do whatever you want. From what we've heard from everybody, I've been trying to kind of like generalize it. And I remember we had this discussion before. The county attorney said, if you really want to deal with this, just make it so that there's not so many variances. Okay, I remember that discussion. So, it seems to me what I've heard so far is the only thing that anybody seemed to really have any heartburn about was the 15-foot native buffer, having it removed. So can somebody address that? What do we mean by native? What do we mean by, you know, can it be totally removed? Does something have to stay? Does native buffer mean turf grass, or does that mean, you know, mangroves, or, you know, what are we talking about when we say?
Yeah, actually, we're talking about two things. You have the 100-foot setback from springs and also the 15-foot natural vegetative buffer. That's in our comprehensive plan and in our land development code during construction. It's not there otherwise. Mr. Zawinski talked about people tearing that down. Yes, that does absolutely have some effect on the shoreline at times when they do that, but it's required during construction and not after that.
Okay, so when the folks say it's okay except leave 1501 about the 15-foot buffer in there, is that what they're addressing?
I think they're talking about the 100-foot spring more, although I think I heard both items mentioned. But the 100-foot setbacks to springs is also in our comprehensive plan during construction. It's actually a very good point to try to keep that one section that says you should have a 100-foot buffer from springs, spring runs, and sinkholes, and then if you can't accommodate that, you can have an engineered design system to direct stormwater away, et cetera. I think we already do that as a matter of course with our stormwater reviews, but it's actually a pretty good idea to probably keep that in.
And again, commissioners can speak to this, but that was really the only thing I heard about opposition was about that one item, right? So if we're trying to look for accommodating this the best we can. The other thing I'd say is with those discussions that came up, I think it was a good piece of work here to come up with this averaging, because what I'm hearing is houses all along the street where I'm going to build a house, hypothetically, or 15 feet back from the water, but now under the code, currently, I can't do what all the other houses has because mine's going to be a new one. Now, under the new code, I can do the same thing my neighbors have done. Is that what's being proposed?
That is what's being proposed, and it's actually not something new. We already do that with front setbacks for street sides.
But not for
So we
waterfront.
already do that, the 6 closest average on that street. So it works, you're right. Some neighborhoods have 20-foot setbacks, some neighborhoods have 50. So it would fit whatever the neighborhood character is.
Okay, and then that also addresses one of the other issues. I remember from Crystal River, even with vegetation, we had an ordinance that wouldn't allow people to have a tall vegetative planting all the way to the canals because that obstructed people's waterfront views. So tell me again how any of this has to do with the obstructed view.
Yeah, that's what they're saying is the strike through of a minimum 15-foot buffer from the mean high water line that's put there, that's in the code right now, and that is during construction, and that is proposed for a strike through, but it is already in our comprehensive plan as well. During construction, you're supposed to leave that 15-foot. Now, a lot of the waterfront lots haven't had it for years, but ideally, yes, they should leave that, but then you talk about view.
Okay.
I also want to talk about real quickly,
Yes.
Mr. Hall talked about pools. The planning board struggled with that one. They did debate that quite a bit. It does say slabs and decks. It was not intended for pools simply because their reasoning was anybody on the water with a pool is probably going to need an enclosure. So that was the reason. It's meant for slabs and decks with that 15-foot default. You don't have to look at the neighborhood, but you can go up to 15 for a slab or a deck. 12 inches, right, 12 inches or less has been historically for decades what we looked at as a on grade. So slabs and decks, yes. Pools by themselves, no. They're probably going to have structures above.
Sometimes.
That's when you look at the average.
Okay, and while you're there, if you would, you've heard what some of the folks have to say. Do you have any, again, it seemed to me, if you're out there by yourself and there's no neighbors around, you're going to default to what's there now. This applies to making the neighborhood contingent.
Right. We get a lot of variances where they say everybody in the neighborhood's already doing it.
Right.
This will allow it if that's really true, and they're not going to immediately block their neighbors.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That was my questions. Commissioners? Yes.
Yeah, I've got a question about, what I just heard was, the reduced setback to potentially to 15 feet would not apply to pools?
It wouldn't as a default. You have the 6 average, the average of the 6 and no closer. But in addition, if you're just going to do a slab or a deck on grade, you can go up to 15 regardless of what's around you because you're not blocking anything, whatever. So that's what it's proposed, but it wouldn't apply to pools as it's written. That was the thing that they don't think people are going to want to keep it as pools. They're going to come back in and want an enclosure. So at that point, we really should be looking at average and not that you get a pass go and go all the way to 15. And maybe 15 is the average, but.
The issue, and maybe I'm opening up a can of worms here that I shouldn't, but the issue that I've got with that is we're eliminating the pools because of the potential of somebody erecting a cage over top of their pool. I don't believe that I have a right to a view across my neighbor's property. You know, I can plant, you brought up the vegetation thing. I can plant bamboo there that'll grow up and block their view, or I can plant trees there that'll block their view. And that stuff's allowed, but the cage isn't. So I'm concerned about that part of it. And maybe we come back to discuss that another day. I would support this as it's written if we want to have that discussion another day, but I was just a little confused by that.
Okay, and the county attorney wants to say something, but I just want to clarify something too. The view is vital to what I'm thinking about. You live on the water, you don't want a neighbor moving in and putting up a 12-foot high fence down to the water line on both sides of you because you paid for that waterfront view and now it's being obstructed. So there's got to be some kind of element of protecting. What makes a waterfront valuable other than parking a boat there is the view you're getting. So unless you build a 10-story building and you're going to get up above everything, you're going to lose your waterfront view. That's why I could buy into the average of the neighbors. Because if the average of the neighbors have pools with screens and they're within 15 feet or whatever, then not a problem. But if the average of the neighbors with pools is 30 feet and you go down 15 feet, you're blocking all the neighbors on both sides. So to me, because I think the stormwater quality issue has been addressed with the engineering and whatever. I'm now looking at the view aspect of it. So that's where I am with it. So, and Madam Attorney, I know you've been very patient. You want something to
No,
say?
I just wanted to, like we talked about before, the current code muddies neighborhood character and stormwater. This clearly differentiates those two things. You've got neighborhood character and you've got water quality. The issue of the 6 closest, remember, that's dealing with neighborhood character, so that's where the screen comes in over the pool. It's not water quality. That's all I was just gonna say. We've
Right.
clearly delineated those two things now.
And that was my point before, because we were always asking, what's this have to do with water quality? And the answer was nothing. So we have to get down to, what it is we're trying to do. So just to back up, like I said, as I look at this today, I have to say I don't have an issue with it, other than we're clear on about this removal of a 15-foot native buffer. And what I'm hearing is that's only during construction, or that's, I want to make sure I'm clear on the understanding of that. I mean, Joanna, would you run that by me one more time? The folks that came up and said, we don't have a problem with it except for the removal of the requirement of the 15-foot native buffer. What is it that, in
The
your mind?
comprehensive plan says 15 foot during construction. In the land development code, it talks about no alteration during construction. After construction, it can be altered as long as it's not in wetlands for up to 50%. So that's all a strike through right now in this proposed ordinance.
Okay, but you said something to the effect that is not really a bad idea, which was referring to what?
I was talking about the 100-foot setback from springs that they try to meet, or else do a stormwater system to address spring
So
impact.
that should be, that should
The
stay.
100-foot setback, yeah, I think that's probably a good idea to keep that.
Okay.
That is a complete strike through.
Okay, yes. Yes,
So-
Commissioner Davis.
To clarify, is that 3501.2 then? That you
Yes,
would
yes,
recommend putting back in?
exactly, it's A2, and the 2 is offset, but yes, it's 3501A2.
A2, got it.
Great.
So,
Okay.
I thought I was clear, but it's been a very long day because now I'm starting to get confused again. I grew up on the water, and I would agree with Commissioner Kennard that I don't feel like I have a right to the side view. There's always going to be the view in front of me. There shouldn't be, that's my land going to the water, and that's what I control. That being said, obviously, there's some odd lots out there and this and that and the other. It does seem to me that a pool should be considered the same as a deck structure because it is at grade, right? Is there any way to basically define, is there a practical way through this? I understand that there's a pretty clear code way, but when it's actually put into place, can we allow pools but warn them that a cage has to go with what is in the neighborhood?
Absolutely, it's something that the planning board debated, and we can put that in, and that's what Mr. Stowe was just whispering to me as y'all were debating, that we need to have that in there. Just understanding the view, it's not as far as you can see, it's the house on either side, period. So that's when we're talking about view. But yeah, we can clarify that if you want pools to be included on slabs and decks. The understanding was they don't think there's too many waterfront pools without enclosures.
Right, and then, of course, there could be,
But then they'd have to meet the
occasional
average.
scofflaw that puts up a pool cage without a permit,
Right.
and then somebody's
Then
got
they
to
just have
bust
to
them
meet
on
the
it.
average, so.
Yeah. Okay, the only other comment I'd say is, Tina, I hate to break this to you, but it's 30% of only the stormwater MSBU, which is less than $100, so it's not going to be a big break on that tax bill of yours. And I would say to everybody here that has the odd size lot, please play, if this goes through, please play nice and make sure you get those engineered stormwater systems looked at every 5 years and certified. So, because there is a concern about, obviously, about enforcement on this with any homesteaded property, so.
Okay. Staff, anything else you want us to know? Commissioner Kennard.
One last question. If we're considering adding in something on the fly here, we're talking about adding in a couple things on the fly. But at first I heard 100 feet from a spring and then 100 feet from a spring run or a sinkhole. What constitutes a spring run? The entire Homosassa River is fed by a spring, as is Crystal River, as is Chaz, are those spring runs.
So who wants to jump on that? Who's going to interpret this when somebody comes in for a permit? I guess that's what needs to be. Mr. Stillwell has his hand up, but he doesn't work for us, so I want to know from staff, when somebody comes in and applies for a permit, how would we respond to these kind of questions?
The river is excluded to a specific distance.
I don't know. I didn't hear staff say that. That's what I'm asking, so.
So maybe if we're going to add this in, and again, we're making changes on the fly. We've had a lot of bright minds work together on this thing and made it through unanimously, is my understanding, through the PDC. But maybe what it needs to be is from a spring head or a spring head to a certain distance, 50 feet, 100 feet or something like that. And, I suppose you could put in there a sinkhole as well. But the whole spring run thing concerns me, that I could see that getting extended a ways down the river. Well, this is all fed by a spring.
Mr. Oliver, you had a comment?
And my recommendation is not make changes on the fly. Let us do investigation on the issues that you'd like and bring them back to you all, and then further refine it. I mean, we've come this far, and that's significant progress, and I think we can work through the remaining issues, but making decisions without all the information, I don't think it's a wise decision.
And I would agree, because I have two concerns. One is, I'm very impressed with how much work has been done and how much common ground has been found. But for folks to come in and get a permit, and, they have to have specific, precise answers, So if I'm sitting here asking a question and nobody's jumping up and down being able to give me a specific answer, that causes me concern. So why are we going through all this exercise if we're going to hear from citizens to say, well, staff interpreted this way and that staff person interpreted that way? I think we need to be very clear of why we're asking or requiring things a certain way, why we do that, and make it so that staff can easily interpret that and apply it as people come in. And I think they can do that now that we have some of these questions that have risen to the top. I mean, I think that's a good idea. What say you guys?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I want to make a motion that we approve the changes before us, OA-22-01, and authorize the chairman and clerk to execute the ordinances for OA-22-01.
As is?
As it is.
As is. Okay, so nothing changed from what we discussed?
Nothing changed. Well, the stuff we've talked about, as Randy discussed, staff can work through those things and bring it back to us.
Okay. So there's a motion by Commissioner Kennard.
I'm now confused.
Okay.
I'll second it for the case of discussion.
Okay,
What
so-
you're-
Go ahead.
It sounds like you're saying that we're gonna do this, but what I heard Mr. Oliver say is that they're gonna do more changes to it based on what we said, and then we are going to consider it in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatnot.
It's going to be a little longer than that because it's got to go back
5
through the
weeks.
PDC process.
Okay.
But as I heard it, the questions that came up were to define distance from a spring run and sinkhole. The other question was a pool and a pool enclosure. Are those the
Right.
three items?
If this is adopted, those are being taken out.
Those, right. If adopted as it's written, which everybody seems to be somewhat okay with, I would like to see the pool modified and pool cage modified. But that maybe that's a discussion for 5 of us up here to have that discussion. And, we need some definitive answers on the spring run and sinkhole and vegetative buffers. As you said, I think that needs to be more specific. So where we're at right now, I suggest we adopt what's been worked on by many people and approved by the PDC, and let's live to wrestle with the other stuff another day.
Okay, is that your understanding of the motion, Commissioner Davis?
I don't understand what the rush is other than I know there's some people in the audience who've been very patiently waiting for this to go through. I am, to a large substance, in approve of what's been put in front of us. I do commend the staff and the PDC for a lot of hard work on this, but if we're approving the ordinance as is, does that not mean a whole bunch of permits could go through while we're still trying to chew through what we'd like to change about this?
I don't know that you're going to get a whole bunch of permits, but it's going to allow some people that have been waiting for years
Right.
for us
To
to
move
address
forward.
this. The PDC has asked us quite publicly to address this. We've now had staff and the folks in land development in the private world saying it's not perfect, but it's an improvement. It's going to help. So I think it's the start of the process. I understand what you're saying, but it's getting this in place helps get us going in a very good direction. So the old fellow with his mobile home can screen in his patio, screen in his porch.
Yeah, will you ponder that, Commissioner Davis? There are a couple of things that make very good sense. The fact that sometimes in new development or redevelopment, you can improve, the stormwater runoff situation, which that goes to the stormwater runoff. The only thing that I have when I keep coming back to this pool issue is I would hate to see us to get into the scenario where, and I've heard this before, restaurant owner comes in, wants to put a restaurant in Citrus County, and the staff says, how many seats you gonna have in it? And he says, 20. You gonna have outdoor seating? No. Okay, here's your permit. So they open up the restaurant, they put 50 seats in it, and they have outdoor seating. And the staff comes along and says, you can't do that. You go, well, you gave me the permit. You said, well, no, because they gave them a permit for something different. So I think there has to be a high level of good faith here, where if somebody comes in and says, oh, no, I'm not gonna put up a pool deck, and then I'm not gonna put a pool screen, and then they put the pool up, and then they, all of a sudden, the next week or two, there's a screen that goes up, then they're gonna be coming and saying, hey, you gave me the permit for it, or whatever. So, and even if you say you're gonna sign in blood that if you put that pool screen up, we're gonna make you take it down, they're still gonna come in, and so you really have to ask yourself, is it worth muddying up that whole issue to deal with just that? Because I can tell you, having lived on the water like you have, I don't know anybody that puts up a pool without a pool screen. And in some cases, I think it's probably required by law, right, that you have some kind of enclosure around it to keep kids out, whether it's a gate or whatever. So that's all I want to do. I just want to make sure that we're not skirting around things that we say. In my mind, what really cleared this up was going with the average of the community. And I can buy into that. That makes total sense to me. We're not telling people you can go into a pristine new area, put a new development in, and build 15 feet from the water. That's not going to happen, okay?
Right.
But we're trying to address the folks that say, why can't I do what my neighbors did? And I understand it. So I can support that. And again, Commissioner Kamara, I try to say yes every chance I can. But when we get into the gray areas, it's not going to do us any good to have folks constantly coming back to us and saying, hey, you guys said this and now you're doing that. So,
Right.
and I can go along with what's in here now, but I do think we need to get something specified, whether it's done at a policy or whatever, where when people come in and say, I live near this spring head or this sinkhole, how far away does this rule apply to?
Yeah.
So, I might have sparked something, yes.
Well, right now,
Yes.
you're doing away with the
Right,
spring.
right.
So it doesn't,
And
Right,
that's what
and there are clear definitions of that. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I don't have it memorized.
Okay, okay,
Our
all
comp
right.
plan and the Florida Administrative Code both, I think, address that. I just don't know what they are off the
That's
top of my
okay.
head. It's not
You mean
something
you don't
that
have the
staff would
whole thing
interpret and say,
memorized?
that's a spring run. It would not be something we do.
Okay. Okay, well, again, it's just a level of comfort that we're trying to get with it, so.
Well, I'm obviously making the motion. I am prepared to support what's before us now. And there's obviously areas that we need to clean up on, areas that we can have further discussion on. If we want to modify or add to it down the road. But the people who are waiting, some of these folks here waiting to do a project, or people that are waiting to to add that back deck or the swimming pool and confine to, keep it still within those averages, what you're going to do is you're going to trigger an awful lot of new engineered stormwater plans that are not currently in place. That is the net environmental gain that Michael was talking about.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Can you go on record on what your understanding is of the changes that you would want to see considered in the future if we adopt this as it is?
I'd like to see, I think we definitely need to address the distances from a spring and exactly what constitutes a spring run. And I would like to have the pool discussion. I may come out on the short end of that, and I'm fine with that. But I would like to have that discussion because I agree with what I started to make that point, and you did a much better job of making the point that I feel that my view on my property is off the back of my property. I don't feel like I have a right to a view. It's nice if you don't do anything in your backyard, but I don't feel like I've got a right to do that. If you plant some vegetation there, if you build a pool cage or whatever there, that's your right to be able to do that. And I think there's some ways that you can, again, I hate to get into discussion because I just said we can discuss this some other time, but I think there's ways that you can deter that cage being put up a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the road. If they don't have a footer, under their deck, they can't put a cage on. It's simply going to fall over. I think there's different things that can be required or disallowed to prevent those cages from being built, if that's the desire. So I think much longer discussion for another day. Again, I think we got a good piece of legislation, if you will, in front of us that the people we trust have all worked together and brought this to us. So,
Okay, we'll make sure Commissioner Davis is understanding this because there's going to be a roll call vote, so.
I do have one
Yes.
nitpicky thing. Should we not have the time frame for the half-inch or three-quarter-inch of rainfall added to that?
We do. What is it?
It's not in the ordinance, though.
Well, it's in the comp plan, right?
Okay.
That's the whole thing, yeah.
All right.
Great.
Just wanted to make sure.
Okay, so we were comfortable with this, finished our discussion, we understand the motion, we've heard from the public. Madam Clerk, could you give us a roll call vote on the motion made, well, you know who made them, so you're going to call it that way, so go ahead.
Commissioner Kennard.
aye.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Chairman Gidgen.
Aye. So that passes 3-0. We will move on. And so, we've announced the upcoming meetings. That's been dealt with. Staff, again, thank you so much for the great project. And we are now adjourned. Thank you.